Welcome to the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season and beyond. It is Selection Sunday. We officially have a bracket. Here is your bracket. I know it's hard to see through all of these, but we're going to break it down region by region. I didn't think I'd start off the show by saying this. I think the committee did a pretty good job. There's a couple little things that we'll sort of talk about where it's like there's one team that made a play-in 16 seed game I thought was kind of interesting, but the rest of the way through, I think the teams that should have been in the field got in the field. There's an argument Oklahoma, even Auburn, San Diego State should have gotten in over Texas. I had Texas in. Texas had the most quad one wins out of them. They had 6 quad one wins. So how the show is going to go today, we're going to go region by region. I don't want to just blab at you all day. I would like people to kind of comment your thoughts, your feelings. There's a couple teams. I mean, I'm kind of just now processing this as well. I've just been basically creating these graphics all the way through. I just had a second ago to kind of look through them and think, ooh, this team got a really good draw, I think. Just instant reaction. Ooh, this team got a not so good draw, I think. So we'll already I'm like from Ethan Ott here. This is what I'm kind of going to do. This is how I kind of want the show to be. People can ask questions. People can, you can label your predictions. If you think, hey, I'm a fan of this team, I think they got a fantastic draw, or hey, I'm a fan of this team, I think they got screwed. I think they should have been seated higher, so on and so forth. So Ethan's first question, will you be talking about your predictions? Sort of, yeah. I don't like to really talk about just how to pick the bracket because I'm going to be frank, I don't really know. Like, pick your bracket. Last year, I didn't even pick the champion, right? So it's not just me. I like to give out a bunch of, fun stats and stuff on our bracket stat shows. But in terms of just talking about how to pick your bracket, I'm not going to do that. But I will talk about some matchup stuff. Some teams I think drew some good matchups. There's going to be one team I'm going to note that I thought was going to be a 5 seed, ended up being a 4 seed. Won a conference championship game today, if you get where I'm going with that, who I think got a pretty bad draw. They got a better seed than I thought they were going to be, but a pretty bad draw. So I'll just kind of we'll kind of just start with we'll start with the East region because I can see Ohio State Glazer Natty is here, and this is the region for Ohio State. So your 1 seed in the East region is going to be Duke taking on Siena. Siena is a good team. It's always kind of hard to predict where these 16 seeds are going to play. I feel like I should know something about that. Like, I thought the play-ins would have to play against Duke or whatever. They should draw Prairie View A&M / Lehigh because those are your 2 worst ranked teams in the bracket. But they drew Siena. I think I said it on the last show. Siena, I think, is the best 16 seed, but it's going to be just no match for Duke. I like this Duke team obviously a lot. I would probably pick them to win the national championship right now if I knew Patrick Gamba is healthy. I'm not 100% sure about Patrick Gamba. Caden Boozer is going to step in and fill the role for Caleb Foster. I really don't think they lose. I mean, obviously you lose a veteran leader. It's losing a lot. However, Caden Boozer can fill in the role. I don't know if you can replace Patrick Gamba. He's got to be back because he's a huge presence. I think he's one of their 2 or 3 most important players on that team. So Duke. So I'm sorry, kind of went off topic there, but from Ohio State, Glazer Natty, I love our draw. So Ohio State draws TCU, 2 of the hottest teams in the entire country. Ohio State been playing really well under Diebler lately. TCU also been playing really well under Jamie Dixon. A common theme of this, because a big theme of the season so far has been just how unlucky and bad the injuries have been. JT Toppin, Richie Saunders, will go all the way through them. Maybe even we'll talk about Michael Brown Jr. here in a little bit. So, if you're an 8-9 matchup and you don't have to play Arizona, or I guess Michigan also had an injury with LJ Kaysen. But if you're able to go up against a Duke team without Patrick Gamba, without Caleb Foster, maybe that's a little bit of an advantage. I would still take Duke, obviously, to win a couple of these games. But Ohio State's been playing really good. However, John Shire's scheme versus Jake Diebler, I don't know if Diebler can quite match up with that. Moving on to the 5-12 games, St. John's versus Northern Iowa. So St. John's, there was some speculation they might be a 4 seed. They did end up being a 5 seed, just not enough in the non-conference. Northern Iowa, I think, is the most dangerous 12 seed out of all of these teams. However, I really like St. John's as a 5 seed as well. St. John's to me is a team that can give Duke some troubles just with their size and physicality in the Sweet 16 if they were to match up there. However, if you're St. John's and you're Rick Pitino and you had that terrible of an offensive game against Arkansas last year who knocked you out, and now you have to go against Northern Iowa in your first matchup, a mid-major team with a top 25 offense at KenPom, that's a little bit scary. I should note as well, these games will be played in San Diego. The St. John's Northern Iowa game, Kansas Cal Baptist game. If you see me looking down to the left, it's because I got my little cheat sheet of where these games are going to be played. Obviously, the Duke game will be played in Greenville, South Carolina. So Northern Iowa, no slouch whatsoever. I think St. John's gets past them, but Northern Iowa, not too bad of a basketball team as well. So if you see, I'm going to talk about some of these other questions, and I'm going to kind of power through these. I'll just label them off So here's your East region. You got Cal Baptist, Louisville, you playing USF, Cal Baptist playing Kansas. And then I'll kind of just hover back and forth from the comments and then go to that select region that they're in. I don't have the regions memorized, so I might be playing around all over the place here. But Michigan State draws North Dakota State. I thought North Dakota State was going to be a 13. They end up a 14. UCLA and UCF in a first-round matchup. Then UConn gets Furman. When you move on to the West region, you get Arizona and LIU, Villanova, Utah State. In the 8-9 game, Wisconsin versus High Point. Arkansas, they're going to be the team I think got a bad draw. We'll talk about them here in a second. Hawaii, right, as the 13 seed who they'll play. Then we had BYU taking on Texas versus NC State in a first 4 game. Texas, NC State, 2 teams that I think should have gone to the first 4. However, Missouri, as you see in the 10 seed here, did not end up going to have to go to the first 4. And they will play Miami, Florida, Gonzaga versus Kennesaw State right above them, then Purdue versus Queens. So I'll kind of stick in these first 2. Actually, you know what? Let's just go through them and power through them quickly, and then I'll kind of go in order of where these comments were drawn. Because I can see we got an Illinois comment. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with you, Jason. The Midwest. Michigan gets UMBC and Howard. UMBC should not be in a playing game. I'll talk about it when we talk about Michigan a little bit more. Georgia, St. Louis, Texas Tech, Akron. Akron draws the injured Texas Tech team. Pretty decent draw for Akron, in my opinion. Alabama versus Hofstra, Tennessee, Miami of Ohio, the last team in the field. I think that's ridiculous. Their WAB and strength of record should have said otherwise. I made the bold prediction. I thought they were going to be out of Dayton. They are in Dayton, and they were actually the last team in the field. They'll get SMU. Virginia versus Wright State. Virginia ends up being the 3 seed. I thought they were going to them or Nebraska. I didn't know which one was going to be a 3 and the 4. They gave it to Virginia. I think they made the right call. Then Kentucky versus Santa Clara, Iowa State, Tennessee. Then this is your final region for those who missed. Florida is your 1 seed. Taking on Lehigh, Prairie View, A&M, Clemson, Iowa, Vanderbilt, McNeese, Nebraska, Troy, North Carolina, VCU, Illinois, Penn, St. Mary's, Texas A&M, and Houston, Idaho. So this is a good spot to go to Jason Robinson's question. Thoughts on Illinois' draw? The Penn one, obviously Penn's going to be a hot topic just with TJ Power dropping 44 today. I don't have any worries that Illinois is going to get past them. And then I think it's a decent draw, at least for your second round matchup. I think VCU is kind of dangerous. They're playing really, really good right now. And they get a UNC team that's a little bit hobbled right now without Caleb Wilson. So we'll see if we get an Illinois-North Carolina matchup. I think it's obviously a pretty good matchup. Illinois is huge. They're ginormous. And North Carolina's without their best front court player. They should be able to keep up. However, if you're a 3 seed, I think the 2 seed you don't want to see in the Sweet 16 is Houston, and they did draw Houston in their draw. So I think it's a 50-50 draw. I think your first couple rounds are pretty solid, pretty serviceable for Brad Underwood's crew. But drawing Houston in that third round might be tough because Illinois is, in their region. They're 1 seeds Florida, they're 2 seeds Houston. What's the common theme between them? Really good front courts, really physical. I know Houston's a little more guard-centric this year, but that's kind of Illinois' MO as well with that, they got a lot of size down low and obviously a lot of size with Keaton Wagler at the guard. So we'll see. Keaton Wagler, if he'll have to go up against this Houston guard defense, might be a little bit of a struggle there. But however, I think it's a halfway decent draw. All right, from Matt, my first thought, UConn could be in real trouble with Texas A&M or UCLA. All right, I'm going to do my best here to find the correct graphics. I believe they're in this one. Nope, that's the Iowa State graphic. We'll find them here. That's Purdue, so they were in the first one that we talked about. I'm going to be all over the place here. All right, so let me pull back up your comment. Could be in real trouble with Texas A&M or UCLA. So UCF, they drew UCF. Did I mess up this graphic? I don't think so they will draw UCF or UCLA. UCLA's been playing well. If UConn were to match up with, UCLA beat Michigan State the other day, who they would actually have to play in the Sweet 16 if UCLA were to get there. It could be a little bit of a decent matchup there for UCLA against UConn. UConn just got beat pretty badly by St. John's, but we'll see. From Aiden Deersing, do you see any major upsets happening? I never really try to predict any major upset because I'll just get it wrong. Quite frankly, I haven't really had enough time to process the brackets yet. I was just creating the graphics, then uploading it onto the StreamYard to try and get this out here. Oh, Matt did say UCLA versus UCF. Yes, I think UCLA can I think UCLA is going to beat UCF. I will say that. UCF has really good guards, but I think UCLA is just going to be too much. They're playing really good basketball. Where's that game being played at? That game's actually being played in Philly, so we know UCLA struggled on the East Coast a little bit. But I think UCLA is going to have enough to get by in, and that'll be a good game with UConn. That'll probably only be like a 4.5, 5.5 point spread. Could be interesting there. From Disco, I'm not Bolus really bad draw for Duke. Red hot blue bloods everywhere in this region. Yeah, this is the region of coaches. We had the same thing last year where it was like Bill Self versus John Calipari. The winner gets to play Rick Pitino. Obviously, John Calipari came out of there. So this one you get John Shire, who's might be the national coach of the year. You get Rick Pitino. You get Bill Self. You get Dan Hurley, Tom Izzo. Really good coaches all the way around. I still think Duke is the best team in this. I'm really. I mean, you can never bet against. Obviously Izzo and Hurley in March. However, and obviously Pitino as well. Yeah, maybe it's a pretty tough draw. I'm not real scared of UConn this season, quite frankly, if I'm Duke. Now, if you have injuries, there's, that's obviously, if Gongba's not back, that's going to be a little bit more difficult trying to guard Terrace Reed. But if he is back, UConn's obviously, you can't bet against him. It's Dan Hurley. He's won 2 national championships. They put up a good fight with the national championship Florida team last year. But I just don't see the talent matching up for UConn to Duke this season. So the draw for Duke is definitely not the best draw. I would agree with that. We'll see if they can. I want to see a Duke versus St. John's round or a Sweet 16 game. I think that could be a lot of fun. All right, from Cully, North Dakota State versus Michigan State. Yes, we saw Michigan State early in the season play down a little bit to their level of competition. Remember they, it was a close game with Oakland. They've kind of gotten out of that and played really good down the stretch late in the season. However, they did have a game where they went to overtime with Rutgers. It's a little weird stuff there. I kind of trust Izzo. I mean, I shouldn't even say that. I do trust Izzo in March. He's obviously fantastic. If North Dakota State can pull an upset, wouldn't that be really fun? From Ethan Ott, Caleb Foster is expected to be back soon. I didn't see that. I thought it was the Final Four as well, which Disco Ballister also says. I thought it was best case Final Four. That's also what I saw. But if I'm not a Duke intel, I have no idea if he's going to be back. Elite 8, Sweet 16. It's always just weird bringing back a player for the Final Four. It's like you made the Final Four without this player, and now you're incorporating them back into the roster. We'll see. Obviously, Arkansas did it last year with Boogie Fland, and it worked out pretty well. They made the Sweet 16, but I haven't quite seen that one. From Ethan Ott, Northern Iowa is horrible in Quad 1 and Quad 2. I don't have their complete metrics pulled up. If that's true, yeah, maybe that's something to definitely look at. I don't have the team sheet or whatever pulled up, but I've just watched this team with their defense a little bit. They were very hurt early in the season as well. They've started, as they got healthier throughout the season. Obviously, they were the 6th seed in the Missouri Valley and went all the way. Their defense, if they can shut you down, if St. John struggles to make shots, it's a team to kind of watch out for. They don't have the dates out yet. Don't they release them like super late? Like it might be like 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. I know it used to be like almost midnight, but we'll see. From Ohio State Glazer Natty, early Final Four picks are Arizona over Florida in the title game. My other 2 teams, Iowa State and Ohio State, the Fighting Deeblers. How about that? I like Iowa State's draw as well. We'll kind of talk about them here in a second. Did they get the Midwest? I would think. So I think Iowa State got a pretty solid draw in this one as well. I think I just don't quite see the ceiling with this Kentucky team. I think that Kentucky Santa Clara game is going to be a lot of fun. Santa Clara is big; they're athletic, but Kentucky has played against games that they're favored. They typically have won. I know they struggled earlier in the season, but as of late, they've actually been playing like okay. I know they just like they competed with Florida, but. And then I like Virginia is really good. If they were to meet them in the Sweet 16, I think your best 6 seed is definitely Tennessee. They're your highest analytically ranked 6 seed. But I do think Iowa State just matches up with someone like a Virginia and a Tennessee pretty well with their physicality and their style of play. So I'm probably going to take Iowa State to the Elite 8. That'll be a 2 seed that I take to the Elite 8. Obviously, having to go against Michigan in the Elite 8 would be kind of tough for Iowa State. But Michigan has proven that they're not indestructible. We'll see about that one. Moving on, let's talk about Joey Irwin. Thoughts on Santa Clara? Yeah, so I kind of just dove into it a little bit. They're big. They look like a legit power conference team. No disrespect to WCC. Obviously, they're an at-large team, so they're very good. I think this team. I'm not going to predict they beat Kentucky because I think this is not a fantastic draw for Santa Clara. But I do think if they were to sneak past Kentucky somewhere, I think they can match up with Iowa State. They have enough talent, enough athleticism. I wouldn't predict them to beat Iowa State, but I think they can give them a game. I like this Santa Clara team a lot. I'm glad they got in the tournament. I was worried they were going to have to go to Dayton, but they don't. They end up as a 10 seed. Glad to see them get in. All right, from Colin Farrick, is it just me or does it feel inevitable that the Final Four is all 1s and 2s? I'm curious if this is going to be a new just thing for college basketball. Obviously, all 4 1 seeds last year. This year, it feels like I mean, Michigan's looked a little bit vulnerable as of late. They've kind of squeaked by some games. I'm going to have a really tough time not picking Duke and Arizona to the Final Four. And then with Florida and Houston being your 1 and 2 seed in the what will that be, the South region, it's going to be tough to not take them. So, Colin, I think I agree with you. Harrison Brown, who wins? Georgia, St. Louis. I like both teams. I don't. St. Louis has been struggling lately. They've really been struggling. However, Josh Schertz is such a good basketball coach. I thought St. Louis, like middle of the season, I'm like, this team's going to be probably a 6 or 7 seed. I'm going to take them to beat a 3 seed and then, make their way to the Sweet 16. Obviously, you're going to have to play Michigan in the second round, probably, unless UMBC pulls another Virginia upset. I think Georgia's going to win. I don't like it, but I think Georgia's going to win. I like this Georgia team. I love Blue Kane. He's like one of my favorite players on this Georgia team. This Georgia team is fast. However, I do trust Josh Schertz more of a coach than Mike White, although Mike White has done a really, really good job the past couple seasons. But we'll see. My gut right now says Georgia, unfortunately, just with the way St. Louis has been playing. But they also have experience. Like Robbie Avila made the championship game in the NIT, so he's got playoff experience. But we'll see. From Disco Bollister, yeah, he added colleagues, said, yeah, the 1 seeds are stronger on paper than even they were last year. Yeah, it's like we keep seeing this separation between a couple of these teams. A couple of years ago, it was, UConn, Purdue, and Houston as like, these are your 3 teams. Then Houston lost Jamal Shedd for the season with that injury. Then last season, obviously, it was like these 4 1 seeds are way above everyone else, and they all made the Final Four. Kind of feels the same this year. I would throw 5 in the conversation. I would throw Houston in the conversation as well. I don't think Houston has I think they're going to have a really good draw, like in the Final Four, have a chaotic Final Four if they want to win the national championship. I don't, like we saw it against Arizona. They played up a little bit, but going against some of the real physical front courts, just with their lack of front court depth, I don't know if Houston can win the national championship. However, I would not be surprised if they get to the Final Four. From Matt, sorry, I meant UCLA. UCF, yeah, you're good. Sorry, I saw your comment just a little bit later there. I should have scrolled down a little bit. My mistake there. All right, Ohio State Glazer Natty. I think Michigan versus Mini Michigan. St. Louis is an intriguing matchup. Yeah, I actually think I don't think St. Louis would have a chance against Michigan. I mean, that not many teams have a chance against Michigan. I think Georgia has a little bit better of a chance just because they're so run and gun, but I don't know. I might take that back. I might think St. Louis actually has a better chance against Michigan just because they can kind of slow it down. But man, that athleticism match is going to struggle for St. Louis against Michigan. Michigan is so athletic. From Ethan Ott, St. Louis is not as good as expected. They have been on a strong losing streak lately. Yeah, and they're looking weak. I agree. They just don't look the part anymore. I heard an interview with Josh Schertz. He basically just said it was like before they even started the stretch. He was asked about like practice, like how do you keep your guys motivated? And he was kind of like, look, I'm gonna be honest. I think we're plateauing right now. Like we're not getting better. Teams are starting to catch us. We're starting to plateau, and we're starting to see that with St. Louis. So kind of weird that Josh Schertz saw that coming. Like I said, that was before this sort of losing streak started happening. So curious to see. I'm glad they got into the, they got an at-large. So it's been a fantastic season for St. Louis. Really curious to see that 8 versus 9 matchup. From Caleb Holt, USF to the Sweet 16. Let me find USF here. Where are they at? Which region are they in? I think they're in the Midwest. Did I get that right? Nope. Maybe they're in the East. They're somewhere around here. Or were they in the one that I was just looking at? Yeah, they're in the East. So USF gets Louisville. They get a Louisville team that Michael Brown Jr., at least from what I've seen, isn't 100% in being able to play. Like they said, they're expected to have him back. However, that's what every team is going to say. Like Texas Tech, same kind of boat with Christian Anderson. They're like, yeah, he's going to be back because the committee will dock you a seed line or something if you don't say that. So I'm curious to see if they can get Louisville without Michael Brown Jr. I think they're definitely beatable. This USF team is playing really good. USF and VCU as the 2 11 seeds, mid-major teams, are no slouch whatsoever. I think both of these teams could win a game. Louisville, they're so weird. I'm not even going to this is going to be a game that I pick. No matter how I pick it, I'm going to miss it because Louisville, they can beat anyone. They can outshoot anyone. They can also play some really bad games. But I would not be surprised if you look up and, Louisville's in the Elite Eight taking on UConn. They just outshot Michigan State, something like that. But I like this USF team quite a bit as well. All right, from Disco Bollister, Any thoughts on UCLA? Could see them making a run. Only problem is the health of Bilodeau and their first weekend being in Philly. Yeah, the first weekend being in Philly is a big thing, traveling across. However, they should be fine. They'll obviously travel a lot earlier than they would in just a normal regular season game. Yeah, also curious to see the health of Bilodeau. Haven't heard the update on that. He's obviously a huge piece. Donovan Dent's been playing really good. I have that's going to be one of those games that I fill in immediately. Sorry, UCF. I'm going to put UCLA to just win that game. I won't be able to take UCF, but yeah, I think they could, like I said, I think they can have some problems with, they can cause some problems for UConn. UCLA was a preseason top 15 team. Obviously, they got the talent. Xavier Booker's been playing a lot better as of late, but we'll see. All right, from Mikey Man, do you like Villanova's draw? All right, let me try and find them here. Are they in this region? I think they are. Yes, they're in the West. So first thing, I'm really glad they got an 8 seed. I saw some people putting them as 9 seeds. I predict them as an 8 seed. I think they deserve an 8 seed. Their strength of record, wins of a bubble, really good. Utah State, I think Utah State's probably going to be favored in this game. I'm not 100% sure. It might be close to something like a pick 'em. However, I will say I think the least vulnerable 1 seed is Arizona. Arizona is just their style. I mean, they don't shoot many threes at all, and they still beat everyone's brains in. So it's like, if Villanova can knock down 1,000,000 threes against Arizona, maybe they can make something happen. But to me, Arizona is one of those teams. I think Arizona has the highest floor in the entire country. I don't think they have the highest ceiling. I think they have the highest floor. I think this West region is very underrated. There's going to be a lot of people talking about how the East region is the loaded region. This is the East region right here, just with those coaches we talked about, St. John's being the 5, UConn, Duke. I think this West region is, I think it's the second best region. Arizona, like I said, they're probably a team I'm probably going to pencil into to the Final Four. I think they're really good. Wisconsin, no slouch. Arkansas, no slouch. I'm waiting for an Arkansas question. Arkansas fans have been all over the place today. I've been seeing them on Twitter, been seeing them on Instagram. I'm glad Arkansas got a 4 seed. However, I think they got a terrible draw in this one. So kind of being in that same top half of the bracket, I think Villanova with a little bit of an iffy draw. I think you wanted to avoid Arizona if possible. All right, from Justin, Michigan State got screwed and put in the hardest region. Yeah, I agree. This is the hardest region. However, I do think they have a pretty good second round matchup. Like, I don't think Louisville is really that scary, especially if Michael Brown Jr. isn't playing. I think he's probably going to play, but even so, they've been without him for a little bit. USF is dangerous. USF is a dangerous team. I think Michigan State. Yeah, this is the hardest region. There's no other way to look at it, in my opinion. I don't think Kansas is like a very scary 4 seed. I know a lot of people, they're going to be a popular pick to like beat Duke and get all the way there. I don't think they're getting past the second week. I don't think they're beating St. John's. I'm going to take St. John's to beat Kansas in that one. But yeah, Michigan State definitely in the hardest region. Alrighty, from BYP 55 48. I have no clue who will make the Elite 8 between Michigan State, UConn, and UCLA. Yeah, sticking in this region. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a tough one. I think this is probably going to be your this bottom half of from Louisville all the way down to the UConn game. Going to be tough. Going to be tough to choose. Absolutely, I would 100% agree. From William M9, and not seeing MAC teams doing anything. Akron and Miami of Ohio. Akron's a team where every single season I'm so optimistic. I'm like, this team's got it. They got good guard play. They can do it. So they're both going to be in the Midwest region. They got the draw to do it. If Christian Anderson doesn't play this first game for Texas Tech with Akron's guards, their speed, Texas Tech's going to be without their true point guard. I think that they have a chance. I say that every single season, I feel like, with Akron. I'm not like crazy about this Akron team. I know they're like in the 50s, or they might be in the 60s now at KenPom. I don't think they're quite that good. I think they're good, and I think they got a good draw in this matchup. I will probably take Texas Tech to win the game, especially if Christian Anderson's playing. I just think Christian Anderson is too good. Like, he is a pro-level guard. But Akron, I think, got a decent draw for Miami of Ohio. We'll see. They got the 11. I'm glad they got put in. I genuinely thought they were not going to have to go to Dayton, but Dayton, hey, it's a half hour away from Miami of Ohio's campus, maybe 45 minutes. So they'll definitely travel well. I'm sure those tickets are probably already about sold out. And the thing about Miami of Ohio is they play SMU, and I don't think SMU is all that good. So maybe they can make some noise, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, SMU is probably going to be favored by 6.5, 7.5 in that game. All right, from Eli Strassel. I like Tennessee to the Sweet 16. So Tennessee taking down that first round matchup. I think Tennessee is going to beat them too. And the thing that sucks about Miami of Ohio as well, going back to the last question, is they did have to draw Tennessee. Like Tennessee's the 6th seed. That's, what are they, 14th at KenPom, or they were yesterday 14th at KenPom or something, maybe 15th. Tennessee's a really good team, really physical. Like Miami of Ohio's physicality versus Tennessee, no disrespect, Tennessee might beat them by like 25 points or maybe more. But hey, Miami of Ohio can also shoot the lights out from 3, but you know who guards the 3 about as well as anyone? Tennessee. I like this Tennessee team. I think I'm also going to take them to the Sweet 16. I agree with you there, Eli. However, I like this Virginia team too, but we'll see. Tennessee versus Virginia, I think, will be a tremendous second round matchup if that's what we end up seeing. From Justin Benura, I think Akron might be able to pull one off, maybe potentially. Yeah, I can see it. Texas Tech, like I said, without Christian Anderson, they can do pretty much. Are they going to be heavily reliant on Donovan Atwell? Like, who's going to run point? Jalen Petty can kind of run point. Not 100% sure, but Akron's got the fast guards to kind of frustrate them a little bit. From Chester, he just says, "What's up? What's up? Thank you for being here, Chester." All right, from Harrison Brown too. Who do you like in St. John's, Kansas potential matchup? So that's back in the East region. I like St. John's. This Kansas team does not scare me whatsoever. Fun fact about my life: Darren Pearson actually went to the same middle school as me, so I've kind of got a little bit of ties to Darren Pearson. I've seen him play a couple times, rooted for him all season, but I think St. John's is just better, especially right now. I think St. John's is better. The only thing to look out for is the Big East was so incredibly bad this season. There's no denying it. The Big East was terrible. Can they get into a little bit of a lull just because, hey, there's a real chance that Northern Iowa could have been the 5th best team in the, as crazy as that sounds, in the Big East. That's how bad the Big East was. That might be a little bit too far, but they're no slouch. It's a little bit out of their realm, out of the Big East, out of Madison Square Garden. That game will take place. Where will that game take place? In San Diego. So, both teams going to have to travel pretty good. At least this is according to Yahoo Sports. Hopefully this is correct. That's the website I found it on. So St. John's, if they were to match up with Kansas, I just think they have the physicality and more talent than Kansas, quite frankly, as crazy as that sounds with Darren Pearson. Darren Pearson can shoot you to a Sweet 16, maybe even get you past there. But I'm not too fond of this Kansas team, quite frankly. I like St. John's in that potential matchup. All right, from William, M9N, Vols always food early on in March Madness, then eventually fall apart. Yeah, I mean, this team's obviously not as good as their past couple teams. They made the Elite 8 2 seasons in a row, but I do still they're kind of a team where you watch Tennessee and you're like, my God, their defense, they're guarding the 3-point line is as good as anyone. They just frustrate the crap out of you, and they can frustrate anyone. Virginia has, a couple really good pieces as well at the guard position, also at the forward position. So if that's a potential matchup, we'll see. From Justin Manura, UNI, St. John's going to be a nuts matchup. I agree. Like I said, St. John's had some offensive struggles last year against Arkansas. The last team you want to face is a 12-seed Northern Iowa team with a top 25 defense in the country. From William M9N, where is the Kansas versus St. John's game being played? It would be played in San Diego, according to Yahoo Sports as of now. Ohio State Glazer Natty, thoughts on Miami's draw? I like them as a sneaky Elite 8 team. Not sure which Miami, Ohio, or Miami. I guess I'll talk about them both. Miami, Ohio. Let me find them here. I'm all over the place with these graphics. All right, they're in the Midwest. There you go. Miami of Ohio. I don't like as a sneaky Elite 8 team. Quite frankly, just going up against Tennessee, I think is just going to be a little bit too much. Now I know Miami of Ohio is a 7, or Miami, Florida is a 7. There they are. They play Missouri. So in their second round matchup, they would play Purdue. What Purdue team are you going to get? It is crazy to me that this Purdue team ended up being a 2 seed. Miami, Florida, they have the size. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They can, kind of match up with Purdue a little bit, but Braden Smith has that, they've got that experience. You kind of saw him in the Michigan game, just kind of turn it on. It meant something for these seniors, but Miami, Florida definitely got some, good mojo going as well. There's one team in this West region that I really think got a fantastic draw. That's going to be Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga got a really, really good draw in this one. I think Gonzaga is, they should get by Kennesaw State. BYU is shorthanded without Richie Saunders. AJ Devanza could maybe just pop off against Gonzaga and beat them. I don't see Texas or NC State really doing much of anything. Definitely not Texas. NC State's got talent, but I don't like this NC State team that much. I'll probably take BYU to win a game. Then I think Gonzaga gets past BYU. Then Gonzaga versus, either Purdue, or if you think Miami's going to get there, I think that's a pretty good draw for Gonzaga as well. I think, last year we talked about it in, what was it, the Battle for Atlantis. We wanted the Mark Few, Tommy Lloyd game. Tommy Lloyd, longtime assistant of Mark Few. They're in the same region here. I think we're going to get it in the Elite Eight with Arizona and Gonzaga. That's kind of just my first instinct. From Sam Wishna, Arkansas and Wisconsin got terrible draw playing each other in the second round. All right, I'm glad someone asked about Arkansas because I want to talk about them a little bit here. Where are they? I know they're around here somewhere. West region, maybe? Yeah, there they are. So Arkansas, a lot of people had them as a 5 seed and Vanderbilt as a 4 seed just because Vanderbilt had better resume metrics, better predictive metrics. However, Arkansas beat them twice. I think the committee made the right decision. I think Arkansas deserved to be this 4 seed. They're scary. They're really good. I think they got a horrendous draw in this one, a horrendous draw. They should get past Hawaii. I think Wisconsin's going to get past High Point. High Point, they've got some talent, but Wisconsin's been playing well. You have to play Wisconsin, who is playing with every single elite team really, really close. Some of the best wins in the country, and you have to play them in the second round as an Arkansas team who just won the SEC championship. That's a pretty bad draw. And even if you get past that one, you get Arizona. And Arizona is about as bad of a matchup for Arkansas as anyone, just because Arizona is so physical. And they got Jaden Bradley, who they can throw on Darius Acuff and say, go shut him down. I love this Arkansas team. And Arkansas, they were going to be a lot of people's pick, even probably before the SEC tournament, to make the Elite Eight, make that deep run, because they have all the talent in the world. I think they got a horrible draw as well. Same with Wisconsin if they have to play Arizona. But Wisconsin can kind of, it's just like Nick Boyd firing up threes. Same with John Blackwell. They can upset anyone. I think Arkansas, out of all the teams I looked at, I haven't dove too deep into it, but I'm like, Arkansas got a terrible draw, in my opinion. Maxwell Slagder, however, I apologize. Slagder, however it's pronounced. Go Bison. I smell first round exit for Michigan State. We'll see. Michigan State played Rutgers close, played Oakland close. They can play down a little bit, but we'll see. Chester the Gamer. I can see MSU losing to South Florida and possibly Vandy beating Florida again. All right, let's go find Michigan State and South Florida. If South Florida can get past Louisville, South Florida is one of those teams. I honestly haven't I really like this team. I don't really have that much of a feel for this team yet, what their complete identity is. Maybe that's just a lack of watching them that much this year. We know what Michigan State's identity is, and it's just size and physicality and offensive rebounding. So I'm curious to see how those teams would match up. I'd have to do a little bit more research on USF, but that would be certainly a story if USF can make a run. And then Vanderbilt beating Florida again, so that's obviously going to be in the South region. Yeah, Vanderbilt is the 5 seed. They would play Florida in the Sweet 16. I think Florida got a pretty good draw. They just match up so well with someone like Clemson and with Iowa. Vanderbilt, they got McNeese. This McNeese team is good. I think this McNeese team is almost maybe better than last year's McNeese team. Is that crazy to say? Or even 2 years ago, this McNeese team is no slouch whatsoever. I kind of trust Mark Byington and Vanderbilt's style. They lost their first round game last year. So if, I'll probably pick Vanderbilt, but McNeese no slouch whatsoever. I think Vanderbilt got a decent draw just because, sorry, Nebraska, I really hope you win this first game against Troy, but I don't think Nebraska's going past the round of 32. I think whoever they draw, and maybe if they can draw McNeese, maybe they can get to the Sweet 16. That'd be a cool story. They're also one of those teams, kind of they kind of remind me of a Kansas State a couple seasons ago when they were actually, they made the Elite Eight with Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson. They kind of remind me of that team where they really, Kansas State really started to fade as of late. Their KenPom numbers started rising. They weren't as great. And then, they kind of turned it on. They flipped another switch and they're like, okay, they are a really good story. Nebraska could kind of be that way as well. But I think Florida got a decent draw to at least make the Elite Eight. And I'll probably be penciling in Florida versus Houston in this one. All right, from Austin Brenner 7, thoughts on Michigan's path. Let me go back to the Midwest here. Fine, Michigan. So you get Georgia or St. Louis. I think they're going to get past them. Alabama is a little bit scary as a 4 seed just because they can outshoot pretty much anyone, but I don't think this team's going to get past Michigan. Michigan's just too good, too athletic. I think Michigan's got a pretty good path to the Elite Eight. Michigan versus Iowa State is probably what I'm going to end up going with, or Tennessee is the other one. I think Tennessee would be my third pick out of this bracket to make the Final Four. Virginia is also right there, but if you get Michigan versus Iowa State, that could be a really, really fun, intriguing matchup. I think Michigan got maybe one of the better roads that you can get to the Final Four, though, I will say. From Jackson Metford, what do you think about UCLA? So I talked about UCLA quite a little bit. I like their team. I think they have a good matchup with UConn as well. I think that's going to be a close game. I'll probably take UConn to win the game, but I think it's going to be close. Like I said, I'm gonna take UCLA past UCF. Sorry, UCF, but I'm gonna take them. All right, William M9N. Texas Tech really going to lose to Akron. Like I said, I'm not going to pick it. I don't think so, but I do think, I mean, you got to look at the Christian Anderson injury. I think that's a huge part of it. If Christian Anderson isn't playing, you're without Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. Christian Anderson has set the record for most points accounted for, so points and assists. He's been absolutely awesome. If he is out, I don't know, maybe you think about taking it. If he's in, you pencil in Texas Tech, in my opinion. But Akron, no slouch. They're not as bad as you might think. Ohio State Glazer Natty. I don't agree with Duke being the hardest. I actually think it's the easiest. Really, that's from what I've seen from other people on Twitter. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. Ran into a little bit of some technical difficulties there. Mic unplugged, so we're going AirPods now. Just going back to this question, I don't agree with Duke's region being the hardest. I think it's the easiest. I kind of disagree. I think this is, I mean, like we said, we've talked about the coaches. The coaches in this region are really, really good. Just with St. John's being your potential Sweet 16 matchup, to me is really, really dangerous. UConn, yeah, I guess you could kind of phrase it that way and kind of look at it and say, hey, maybe there's not really any elite teams with real high ceilings. I guess like UConn's really good, obviously under Dan Hurley, but maybe not the highest ceiling. Same goes with Michigan State. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of this Kansas team. I think St. John's was maybe your next choice. So I guess if you could want to try and frame it that way, you probably could. From Calvin Forbes, thoughts on the South with Nebraska versus maybe Vanderbilt. UNC, VCU seems kind of chalky to me. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, so like I said, with Nebraska, I think if you're Nebraska, you're praying to play McNeese because I think Vanderbilt can kind of beat up on Nebraska. I don't think that's a great matchup for Nebraska. So obviously be rooting for Nebraska be rooting for McNeese in that one. But yeah, with North Carolina VCU, like I said, I'm not 100% sure on who to pick in that one. North Carolina is going to struggle without Caleb Wilson, and I really like this VCU team, but it's going to be a tough one. I'll have to look into the matchup side of it. VCU's just been on fire lately. I pick VCU every single season, and it never works out. So maybe that's a little bit in the back of my mind as well, but we'll see. Caleb Holt, I'm fading BYU with how inconsistent they've been since the Saunders injury. Probably not the worst decision ever. I think they're going to beat Texas or NC State. Neither of those teams scare me whatsoever. I think they'll get past them, but I don't see them getting past Gonzaga unless AJ Devanza drops like 48 points. I agree with you, but they have been playing a little bit better as of late. We saw them compete with Houston for a while, so that's a little bit of something. But this Gonzaga team, don't sleep on Gonzaga. I think they're kind of being a little bit overlooked right now. Ohio State Glazer Natty, I think it's more likely a 14 beats a 3 than a 13 beats a 4. Yeah, I would agree. I don't see Hawaii beating Arkansas. The one I will say, and it has nothing to do with Alabama. I just think the best 13 and the most dangerous 13 seed is Hofstra. Hofstra's got some size. They've got some athleticism, but Alabama's style is just so hard to beat. They produce more possessions and they produce more possessions and they're better at shot making than you. So over a longer possession game, they're going to beat you, but Hofstra has the ability to maybe play up. All right, from Jackson Mefford, I think Tennessee wins because they defend the 3 so well, and that's what Virginia uses. I would agree with that take. I have never, just eye test wise, there's no team in the country right now that guards the 3 better than Tennessee does. Just watching them, it's like, God, how frustrating is that to try and get a shot off of them? However, like Vanderbilt's pretty reliant on the 3, and they just beat Tennessee, so it kind of give or take there. But I definitely agree with this. Playing devil's advocate pod. Late joining, I think Vandy as a 5 is clearly the biggest miss. I genuinely thought that if Arkansas was a 4 seed, that they would not jump Vanderbilt. I genuinely thought that if anyone, they would jump Kansas. So I was shocked when they put Kansas at first. I'm like, oh, that means Arkansas is probably the 5. no. Then Arkansas comes out as a 4, and I'm like, my God, it's Vanderbilt. So it was kind of surprising to me. I don't completely disagree with it, but yeah, we'll see. From Cully, Tennessee State Final Four run is here. Tennessee State taking down Iowa State. It was a time in my life, like when I was like 12 or 13 years old, where I felt like Iowa State was one of those teams where every year I'm like, they're just frauds. They never get past anyone. Obviously, that's changed a ton as of late. They've been really good. And I would always fade Tennessee State. And then who was that 14 seed that beat DeAndre Kane and that Iowa State team that I actually picked right? That was one of the few. But I like this Iowa State team a lot. All right, from Calvin Forbes, thoughts on Nebraska's draw, also UNC versus VCU. I'm not going to give my take on UNC versus VCU because I have no clue. I don't know about this game whatsoever. VCU is blazing hot right now, but this UNC team has a lot of talent. I don't know if VCU has anyone who can guard Henry Basar. Nebraska, decent draw if you're looking for a deep run. Troy, I think if there's God, I hate to say it. I'm sorry, Nebraska fans, but I think your most likely 13 over 4 or 14 over 3, like we just talked about, would be Troy over Nebraska, just because this isn't even a fault on Nebraska. Obviously, they probably don't have as high of a ceiling as some of these other teams, but Troy is so well coached. And we always see it with some of these teams that bring a couple pieces back and then go to the NCAA tournament the next season. Troy is that team. We'll see if they can pull off an upset. I hope I'm taking Nebraska to win that game because I am speaking it into existence. I want Nebraska to win that game. That kind of goes into our next one with, does Troy have upset potential? Yes, I think this Troy team is sneaky. They're really, really well coached. We'll see. I think this was kind of a tough draw for Nebraska. So I'm going back to Calvin's question maybe a little bit. All right, from Eli Strassel, which 12 versus 5 do you like the most for an upset? So I'll just kind of go through them a little bit. St. John's versus Northern Iowa. I wish Northern Iowa would have drawn someone other than St. John's. Obviously, St. John's playing so well because Northern Iowa was going to be my team. I think they're the most dangerous 12 seed, but St. John's really good. I'll probably take St. John's in that one. Wisconsin High Point. Maybe you can get a little something here. Wisconsin obviously plays up. They can beat anyone in the country. They've been playing really well as of late, but you shut down Nick Boyd. You shut down John Blackwell. Maybe you can make something happen. However, I'm not like as high on this High Point team as others are, but they just cruise through the Big South tournament. So maybe you can look at that one. My pick will be Akron over Texas Tech. And I know someone just didn't like that that Akron pick. It's just the Texas Tech injuries. Without Christian Anderson, without JT Toppin, as I keep saying, I think Akron got the best 12 seed draw. Your other one is McNeese over Vanderbilt. McNeese might be the best overall team. In fact, I'm guessing they were seeded the highest of the 12 seeds. I didn't see them in like number order, but I think they're the best team. But I think Vanderbilt's just really good. So I think this is kind of a tough matchup for McNeese. But so I'll go Akron over Troy. However, we've kind of seen the 12 over 5 start to fizzle out a little bit. Did we see 2 of them last year? We saw Colorado State over Memphis. I think there was another one. Was there another one? But the year before, I believe we didn't have one. And then maybe the year before that, we didn't have one or something. But yeah, we'll see. From Disco Bollister, is it me or is the 12 through 14 line significantly weaker than previous years? Were there a lot of upset in mid-major conference tournaments or something? Yes, there were a ton of mid-major conference upsets. Belmont was like my team forever. I thought Belmont was going to get it out of the Missouri Valley. However, if they didn't get it, I'm glad it was Northern Iowa because I think they were the next best team. A lot of potential to maybe pull off an upset. The rest of the way through, yes, there were, we started off conference tournaments with a lot of upsets. Since then, it was, started getting a little bit chalkier, which was kind of nice to see because I like to see those, mid-majors send the best to the NCAA tournament with a chance to do it. All right, from Justin Benura, which potential Cinderella got the best draw? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't dove too deep into the bracket yet. Just going through them, picking out a random one. I'll say Northern Iowa, even just because I think that second round matchup. I think whoever plays Kansas, that second round matchup is going to win. Northern Iowa versus Kansas. How about that? Remember that game? What was that? 2008. Ali Farouk-Namesh, who's now coaching Colorado State, knocked down the Big Three. If we could get that again, I would still probably take Kansas in that game. But yeah, I'm not going to come out and say Cinderella's dead, but like the last question that Disco Bollister just said, the 12 through 14s aren't as great anymore. However, like St. Peter's wasn't that great. Like obviously they were great in the NCAA tournament, but they were a 15 seed. Like they weren't, that same goes for, a couple of those other, like Princeton's always dangerous in the Ivy. So maybe if you're looking for the Ivy, maybe look at Penn. The Ivy's always better than we seem to think, but yeah, really good team. All right, moving on to Jack Groniger.
How far do you think Florida goes? So Florida in the South region. I think Florida's going to make the Elite Eight because I think they got a pretty good draw to make the Elite Eight. I'm going to take Houston over Florida, though. I think Houston matches up with them well, just because I think Houston can, just with their guard pressure, kind of like Tennessee, with their guard pressure against Florida's guards, I still don't trust Florida's guards all the way, although they've played better. But if you're to give me, like, throw Kingston Flemings on Xavier Lee, it's like, my God, he's just going to eat him alive. Now, if Xavier Lee's making shots, that's a different story. But I think Houston got a pretty good draw here. I'll probably be taking Houston in the Final Four. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Houston doesn't get to the Elite Eight even to play Florida. Illinois can maybe give them trouble. However, I think Illinois is actually a good matchup for Houston as well. This is where you find your little Cinderella. If we were to get we haven't talked about this one yet, but 7 versus 10, St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. St. Mary's like the slowest team you'll ever find. Texas A&M, the fastest team you'll ever find. This is going to be a crazy, crazy matchup. Remember, we saw that last year with St. Mary's and Vanderbilt, and the final score ended up like 48-46. It ended up going St. Mary's way. So maybe St. Mary's could, that's going to be a fun matchup. But I think as of now, my pick would be Houston to the Final Four and Florida to the Elite Eight. But if you want to pick Florida over them, because Florida's front court could get, I've been saying it for a while, the way to beat Houston is just get JoJo Tugler in foul trouble. Easier said than done, obviously, but you get him in foul trouble. With Florida's front court, you can easily get him in foul trouble. That might be, I like the matchup for the guards for Houston. I like the matchup for the front court for Florida. So either, Elite Eight or Final Four. All right, from Anti-Povert, Alabama beats Michigan, goes to the Elite Eight. That would be something. We saw it, like, this Alabama team as a 4 seed is so similar to their Final Four team. So similar. Like, incredibly similar. That Alabama team that made the Final Four was not the best Alabama team. Last year's team made the Elite Eight. They were the 1 seed a couple seasons ago, overall number 1 seed. Then they had the random 4 seed in the middle of them where, they played a tough schedule, but lost a lot of games, then made the Final Four. They beat North Carolina, who was kind of built like, like a really an NBA, like, huge, like, team. So maybe they can do the same thing with Michigan. If you're going to take it, I wouldn't hate on it whatsoever. LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway, knocking down threes, not a matchup I would want to face. All right, from Sports Kid, I got Arizona Final Four is Duke versus Florida, Arizona versus Iowa State. I like it. That'll be, fairly similar to what I think a lot of people's will have. Iowa State might be a little bit of a hotter one out of the Midwest with Michigan in there. But hey, I'm not going to go against that. Michigan doesn't have. I know it's like stupid to say. What are they? 31-3. They don't have the NCAA tournament experience playing together like this Iowa State team does with Josh Jefferson, with Momcilovic, and with Taman Lipsey. So if you want to take that, fully understand that. Disco Bluster says I like that. I don't think Michigan's backcourt is Final Four level. I'm not going to disagree. Michigan has dominated a lot of teams, but without LJ Case, I think that hurt more than you think. You're right. They don't have that star in the backcourt. Can Trey McKinney really step up and be like that? Okay. That's kind of what I noticed with that game against Purdue today. It's like when they needed to get a bucket, they don't have a guard that can just say, hey, go get a bucket. You obviously have Yaxel Lendeborg, but you also want that guard where it's like, hey, here, Kingston Flemings, go get me a bucket. Here, Darren Peterson, go get me a bucket. Here, LeBaron Philon. They just don't have that. That might be the thing that holds them back this season. From Anti-Povert, Alabama can beat anyone if they shoot well. They just need to get their rebounds. Absolutely. The front court is the concern. Without Charles Bediako, they've been better, but Aiden Sherrill's actually been really good. But outside of that, yeah, they need to rebound a little bit better. Ohio State Glazer Natty. Wanted to pick Wisconsin to the Final Four until I saw them in Arizona's region. I agree. It's a horrible draw for Arizona, horrible draw for Wisconsin, horrible draw for Arkansas as well. 100% agree with that. I like this Wisconsin team. However, if there's, like I said, I think Arizona's got the highest floor in the entire country. There's a team you don't want to face that can pick you off. It's Wisconsin. They can beat anybody. All right, from Disco Bluster, yeah, they shoot well. Don't get pummeled on the glass. They can do that. Very glass canny, though. Absolutely. All righty. Let's move into playing devil's advocate pod. Inconsistent with bumping and knocking teams for their conference tourney results. They've given Vandy a 5, who had the best week outside of Purdue. That's a good point because, if you're going to weigh heavily on these conference tournament results, if you're going to, put Purdue up to that 2 seed, it should mean something that, Vanderbilt picked up 2 quad 1A wins. They were a 5 seed coming into the week. You beat Tennessee, which is quad 1A. You beat Florida, which is quad 1A, and then you lose to Arkansas. Yeah, move Arkansas up, but don't penalize Vanderbilt for that. I think, I like Arkansas as a 4. I think they should have done it. I think Vanderbilt probably should have been the 4 and then Kansas the 5, but Yeah, you're splitting hairs here. It's close. Same goes for St. John's. Like St. John's is in the conversation. To me, there were 6-4 seeds this year. I guess that's the best way to put it. But yeah, I would agree with this for the most part. Devil's advocate pod. From Joe Mama, nobody shuts down Acuff. That is correct. Darius Acuff is my favorite player in college basketball. He is unbelievable. Just like I've talked on here a lot. It's like I've never seen a better shot maker in college basketball than Darren Peterson. That was at the beginning of the year. He's kind of struggled a little bit left. Well, there is. It's Darius Acuff. He is absolutely fantastic. So we will see if he can just kind of carry them. But like I said, pretty tough draw. Darius Acuff versus Nick Boyd in the second round would be awesome. Playing devil's advocate pod, Purdue and Miami getting Mizzou and St. Louis is interesting. Yeah, this Mizzou team I came in high on this season. Where are they at here? I know they're in one of these regions. They must be in the mid. No, they're somewhere. They must be in the West region. There they are. Yeah, so Miami, Florida, getting Mizzou and St. Louis. I'm sure that'll affect the odds a little bit. I don't see the ceiling too high with this Miami, Florida team or Missouri. I really like Mark Mitchell. He's one of those guys who could become like a March Madness level legend. He's that good. But yeah, we'll see. All right, Calvin Forbes, thought on Nebraska's draw. Also, UNC versus VCU. We talked about that question. I think you retyped it. So yes, I believe it was you who commented earlier, I believe, correct? Also from Calvin Forbes, thoughts on Texas Tech and Bama's matchup. So Texas Tech, like I said, it's all going to depend on the health of that team. Alabama, like I said, I think Hofstra is your most dangerous 13 seed. That's not the 13 seed I would have wanted to face. However, I do think if Alabama gets past Hofstra, they will get by Akron or Texas Tech. You never know. Christian Anderson can maybe shoot Texas Tech to the Sweet 16, but we'll see. Decent draw for Alabama. I'm kind of in agreement with some of the comments I saw of just like the 12 seeds and 13 seeds. They're not that spicy this year. It's not like, yeah, this is the team. This is the one. Yeah, I would agree with that. So I think all these top 5 seeds have halfway decent matchups. Virginia versus Iowa State, a hard to pick from Troy Hart 2878. I like this Iowa State team. That's what I'll say. I think this Iowa State team has the potential to make the Final Four. Like someone just picking them past Michigan. But Virginia, God, you can't count them out. They have 2 of everything. They got depth. They got size. They're built like a national championship team. However, I don't know if they're quite talented enough to win a national championship. I mean, it's a 3 seed. Anything can happen. But they're really good as well. It'll be a tough one. All right, Jared Bush, we got a lot of comments here. Appreciate that. St. Louis, that's the first comment. Yes, we'll take St. Louis over Georgia, I guess. Michigan got waken up. Yeah, they. I can also agree with that. I think that really does mean something. A lot of people are like, losing. You lose and you write them off. There are some concerns for Michigan, obviously with the health and with the backcourt. But sometimes this really does mean something. We saw it with Purdue a couple seasons ago with Zach Edey, where they made the national championship game. They lost in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament to Wisconsin. Who else? Who plays up to everyone every season, it seems now. And so we'll see if that's Michigan's case, and kind of refocus a little bit. Jared Bush, UCLA, a Sweet 16. Could see it happening. We talked about their matchup with UConn. Could be a good one. Furman is tough. I don't even know who Furman drew, quite frankly. Did they play UConn? Did they draw UConn? I feel like they drew UConn. Am I making that up? Furman versus UConn. What if we saw Furman versus UCLA? If you're going to pick that one, that would be cool. Then he says Akron takes Zips. St. John's winning that region. Wouldn't completely disagree. I think this is going to be a really fun region. All right, moving on. Taylor Jones, 9979. Since 2011, a playing game has won a game in 13 out of 15 tournaments. Who is the play-in team that could continue that trend? All right, so what are your 2 playing games? We got Texas versus NC State. I don't think either of those teams are going to make any noise. Then Miami, Florida versus SMU. Maybe it's a mistake. I don't see any of these teams doing anything, especially this one, Miami, SMU, just playing Tennessee. I don't think they're beating Tennessee. Your better matchup would be going up against BYU just because they're hurt. I don't like this Texas team. I don't think I was so high on NC State coming into the season. They haven't been that good. I don't see anything that's too great with NC State playing up either. I'm not going to take either of them this year, in my opinion. And I know it is 13 out of 15, and that's a great stat because it always seems to happen. That's a really good stat. However, like we've kind of talked about on the show, if you're a follower of the show, this is the worst bubble we've ever seen. There's stats backed up by it. EvanMia.com came out with the stat. This is the worst bubble of the past 15 seasons. So these 11 seeds, not going to be as good. However, it is a real thing if you win and build up momentum. I always kind of try and feel it out after those first 4 games. And then you kind of just see it's, we'll see. But yeah, definitely a good stat. Playing devil's advocate pod, if you combine 23, 24, and 26 UConn, they've lost a total of 2 non-conference games by a combined 5 points. Totally different teams outside Big East play. That's a fun fact. I did not know that one. That's really a really good stat there. Combined 5 points even this season. Who did they lose to? Did they lose to anyone in the non-conference? I can't even remember. But yeah, that's really cool. Or maybe it's something about the Big East play. Like it works well for St. John's. It might not work well for UConn. Obviously, they won the Big East that one year, but in that second year that they won the national championship, and not the year before that. The year before that, they were 10-8, and then this year, second place. We'll see. Scotty Lertzman, that's on Michigan and best matchups for upset. I like Michigan. Like I just kind of talked about them a little bit. The backcourt depth, a little bit of a concern without LJ Kaysen. The backcourt stars, a little bit of a concern. Best matchups for upsets. Like I said, I don't love any of the 12s or the 13s this year. 11s, I like both the mid-major 11s, USF, in VCU. Maybe could make some noise. I'm not particularly fond of any 10s over 7s. Could we be looking for some chalk? Maybe Santa Clara over Kentucky. Kentucky fans won't like that. Maybe Texas A&M over St. Mary's. Who's the other one? I don't see UCF beating UCLA. Maybe Missouri over Miami, Florida. I don't know. To me, 7-10s are, I can never figure out 7-10s or 8-9s. Just like in bracketology, I could never figure out differentiate the 8s versus 9s this season. So we'll see. All right, Jared Bush, he says, High Point, it's it. Okay. Akron is good. Pick. Okay. I like this Akron team as well. John Gross might be moving up to a little bit of a higher job. All right. Slimmy Jimmy with a fantastic profile picture. Ian Hawk, I think UCLA gets really hot and beats UConn, makes it to the Final Four as a 7. That would be wild. They're playing really, really well right now. They're in the East region, so they'd have to go through Washington, D.C. It would be kind of interesting if they were able to play it down somewhere west and maybe have a little bit of a geographical advantage. But yeah, I could see it. Like I said, I kind of think Gonzaga's in a really, or not Gonzaga, excuse me. Who was it in that region? I'm looking at the wrong graphic here. St. John's. I think St. John's is in a decent position here to maybe get past Duke if Duke is not healthy. So if we could see like a St. John's UCLA, maybe there's, maybe it's not Cinderella if it's UCLA, but maybe she's not dead. Maybe it's something interesting that we can find there. From Jonah McNeese over Clemson. Yes, that was last year. Yes, he says last year. Yep. Justin Benura. I heard someone on Twitter called the East region the region of doom and despair. Yeah, I agree. I wonder if that's John Rothstein who said that. That sounds like a John Rothstein quote, but yes, I would agree. Very, very good coaching there. All right, Jay Simone. I know you love TCU. Think they could take a banged up Duke? If I'm Duke, I want to play Ohio State in the second round. That's what I'll say. And I know Ohio State's been playing really well. We saw TCU beat Florida earlier in the season. TCU can play with anyone. They're physical. David Punch is awesome. I think they can compete. I'm not going to predict them to win. Maybe this kind of gives me just a little bit of UCF versus Duke a couple seasons ago, where Duke was, they were the best team in the country. They had Zion. This team's got Cam Boozer. Obviously, that team didn't deal with injuries like this team's dealing with. If they don't have Patrick Gamba for that game against TCU, if TCU were to get past Ohio State, I like this TCU team. I'll take Duke to win the game. I think it's the smart thing to do, but do not sleep on TCU. Not a bad basketball team. Mikey Man, highest seed that you think wins in the first round. I think we'll get. I'm gonna be I'm gonna talk myself into just being wrong no matter what. But hey, it's whatever. It's gonna be crazy. I'll say we get a 13 over a 4 this year. I'm not sure who it's gonna be. I'll say we get a 13. It's so different from power conferences to mid majors in this day and age, especially if the best mid majors don't win their conferences this year. I'll say we get a 13 over 4. I'll say maybe we get 12 over 5, and I think we get an 11 over a 6. But then I think it's going to be pretty chalky, unfortunately. Like I said, there's a couple teams that have some potential. I think St. John's, like I said, they're going to be the team that has some decent potential. A lot of people will take him, especially if Duke's banged up. But I'll say we get a 13, just trying to speak it to existence. All right, Jack Groniger, what double-digit seed is most likely to make the Sweet 16? So like I said, with the 11 seeds that I like, it's going to be USF and it's going to be VCU. So USF has a decent draw against Louisville, especially if Michael Brown Jr. doesn't play. And like I've talked about for a while, Michigan State does kind of play down to competition at times. We saw them take Rutgers to overtime. They struggled with Oakland. However, it's a different team now. I'd have to look into a little bit more of the matchup specifics in that one. Other double-digit seeds, like I said, I'm not in on Texas or NC State. This is going to come back to bite me when NC State turns into Kevin Keatts NC State and is an 11 seed and starts winning games. Miami, Ohio, SMU, sorry, no. Maybe Texas A&M, VCU. I think VCU, I know it's easier said than done, but there's a way to beat Illinois. There is a little bit of a way you can force Keaton Wagler into some difficult shots. Keaton Wagler's so good at getting to his spots, but there's a little bit of a way. I'll say VCU just for the sake of it. I'll probably take Illinois to get to the Sweet 16, but I'm going to go with VCU. I like this team. They're playing so good right now. To the point where I actually, I don't usually bet individual games, and I did bet them today against State. And I'm like, this team is just really, really good. They got the thing about them, so we'll see about them. All right, from William M&M, exactly. Coach Early and his staff gives Huskies a great game plan to win. Refs led Big East teams. Yes, this is in reference to the great Big East stat that they have only lost by a combined 5 points in non-conference play. All right. Jack Groniger, which double-digit C? Oh, it's the C. Same question. Yep. So I'm going to go with VCU for that one. All righty. Where are we at here? Calvin Forbes. All right. How deep do you see Purdue going? Their defense is so rocky. I could see Miami capitalizing. I think they're going to get past Miami. I'm not even going to put it out of the realm of possibility that Missouri beats Miami. But if we're just going chalk-wise, I'll say, Miami beats them, then Purdue. I just think Purdue's experience, that does mean something in March. They're 3 seniors, plus Oscar Clough's been playing really well. However, same way you can beat, the best way to beat Houston is to get JoJo Tugler in foul trouble. I saw it with Ohio State when they just beat Purdue, get Oscar Clough in foul trouble, and they don't really have any answers. So we'll see if Miami's size and physicality can really match up with them. So that could be a really good point. Same goes for Missouri. Missouri's got some size and athleticism. Get Oscar Clough in foul trouble, they're vulnerable. I'll say they get to the Sweet 16, and then I'll say Gonzaga takes them down. From Pug Peep 7493, another great profile picture here. Love it. I like Troy over Nebraska. It's a bad draw for Nebraska. Troy and Hofstra, the 2 13 seeds that I would not want to face. I'm not scared of Hawaii, and I can't remember who the other one is. But I think Troy got a decent matchup here too. I'm not going to pick it. I think there's going to be 113 over 4. Blueberry Hose. All righty. I like the bracket Arkansas is in. They have some of the weakest high seeds. Really, see, I kind of disagree with that a little bit. Where are they at here? They're the one that gets Arizona, right? I just moved off of it, didn't I? Yeah. So they're I would agree with maybe the part with Purdue, because I don't think Purdue's really that dangerous. Like I said, I would not want to face Arizona. This team is awesome. Arizona is awesome. And I don't think Arizona is a particularly great matchup for Arkansas. However, you can't even look ahead to Arizona when you might have to play Wisconsin as your next game. Whoever was put as the 4 seed that was going to have to play Wisconsin as a 5 seed had a pretty tough draw. Wisconsin can beat anyone. I think Arkansas gets past them. I think Darius Acuff does it and is just good enough to get past them, kind of frustrate them. And then I think we get a good game between Arkansas and Arizona. Arkansas can shoot the lights out, but like I said, Jaden Bradley is one of the best defenders in the country. If you can throw him on Darius Acuff, there's I'm going to take Arizona just because I think Arizona's awesome, but we'll see. I guess I just kind of answered this question too. Scotty Lertzman, Wisconsin or Arkansas? I'll probably take Arkansas, but Wisconsin can beat anyone. I believe in Darius Acuff. He is absolutely awesome. Blueberry Hose, Arizona are chokers, and I think the easiest 1 seed draw in my opinion. Funny story, like every time, I'm trying to build up conversations with like someone in my family or something, and we're talking about Arizona. They're like, who's the best team in the country? This is weeks ago when they're number 1. I'm like, well, Arizona's number 1. They always say, oh, Arizona's a choker in the tournament. So obviously they build up quite a bit of a reputation. However, I think this team is different. Their style is unbelievable. They are like beast. Mo Krivas is awesome. Toby Awaka is awesome. He comes off the bench. He's the best bench player in college basketball. And Anthony Del Orso is right behind him. I know the big, thought about Arizona is, well, they can't shoot threes. I think they can. They just choose not to. They don't have to. Their offense is efficient enough without having to shoot threes. I really like this Arizona team. I don't have anything bad to say about this Arizona team. The only thing that it is that they are just a little bit young. They're heavily reliant on Braden Burries. Braden Burries has been playing. He played fine last game, but he has been shooting some. Didn't he shoot 3 air balls in the first couple minutes of the last game? So we'll see about that. What's going on with that? But I really like this Arizona team, quite frankly. All right, Colin Farrick. I know it's Matt Painter, but this Purdue team has talent and style of play to make a super deep run. They're so I don't know what to think about this Purdue team. I saw them, live against Ohio State. I went to that game a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, God, this team just doesn't have it. But then you see them today against Michigan, and you're like, God, where's this team been all year long? If they defend, they can beat anyone. If they don't defend, they can lose to pretty much anyone. I agree. Braden Smith is awesome. However, I think it's just one of those where they're a little bit matchup dependent as well. So if they were to have to match up with maybe a Gonzaga's not huge, but if you can just frustrate Trey Kaufman-Renn a little bit, which I guess, I'm kind of going against my own grain here because, they just did against Michigan. Michigan's huge. They have a Demara, and Trey Kaufman-Renn was getting whatever he wanted. I don't know. I don't really know what to think about this Purdue team. My thought on it is I really like this Gonzaga team, and I think they're underrated, so I'm going to take them to the Elite Eight. But anyone taking Purdue to the Final Four, wouldn't hate it whatsoever. All right, moving on. Pug Pete. Wisconsin versus Arkansas, possible second round matchup would be awesome. Yes, it would absolutely be awesome. I 100% agree. Blueberry Hose, Arkansas over Wisconsin. Everyone loves this game. It's going to be a fun game. Arkansas over Wisconsin. I'm going to go with that as well. All right, from Jay Simone. UCLA gets blown out in the East. Tough draw for them. If they played in the West, I'd agree. Yeah, they're so good in the West time zone. However, they played pretty good in the what would it be, the Central time zone in Chicago in the Big Ten tournament. They're playing better, but yeah, this could also be a team where it's like, oh, that was the true UCLA team when Mick Cronin's yelling at reporters, stuff like that, Blueberry Hose, I think we have the most beatable 1, 2, 3 seeds. That was in the Arizona region, right? Gonzaga, Purdue, and Arizona. Hey, I respect the opinion. I respect it. Good. Blueberry Hose is a Arkansas fan, I'm guessing, correct? After what I've seen here. Arkansas can beat anyone. Arkansas can live up to anyone. They won the SEC. The SEC is the highest analytically ranked conference at KenPom. They can beat anyone. I don't really love the draw against Arizona, but hey, you think you can beat them? Go out and beat them. Darius Acuff can do majestic things, we'll say. TSL 5, excited to see Virginia and Michigan in the same region. Kind of wish it would have been a Sweet 16 matchup, but Virginia to be on the 3 seed. Problem is their path is tough. I agree with this. Where are they at here? Yeah, I'll find them somewhere. They're in the Midwest. There they are. Yeah, so they get Wright State. I'd expect them to get past Wright State. Like I said, if there's a 6 seed I don't want to play, it's Tennessee. Tennessee is good. Tennessee is physical. They can match up with Virginia's size. Yeah, I agree. But if you get past there, you get Iowa State. I think the Midwest is kind of a sneaky good region as well. All these regions are good. I'm going to say that about every region. I'll be like, yeah, there's a couple teams that are pretty good. But yeah, I'm excited to see Virginia. Hopefully they get their first win since they won that national championship in the NCAA tournament. Ohio State Glazer Natty. Might be crazy, but I have a USF UCLA matchup in the Sweet 16. So that's in the East, right? UCLA versus USF. USF getting past Louisville and Michigan State. I'm not going to argue it. I don't know that much about this USF team. I need to watch a little bit more on them. UCLA, if they can get past it, there always seems to be, other than last year, there really wasn't, other than, I guess, Arkansas over St. John's, there always seems to be one region that's just chaotic. Hey, I did pretty good on those 3 regions. And then this region, it's that happened. We have an 11 versus 7. Maybe this is the one. If you can predict it, that's awesome. Blueberry Hose. Gonzaga is overrated. Easiest 3 seed for sure. I don't know. I like Gonzaga. I do kind of like this Gonzaga team. We'll see if they get Braden Huff back. I kind of doubt it until at least maybe the second weekend, if they can get there. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see about this Gonzaga team. I kind of like Gonzaga, honestly. I'm not going to lie. Blueberry Host, Santa Clara might upset Kentucky here, not going to lie. I like Santa Clara too. That's going to be one that I lose sleep over at night. Kentucky versus Santa Clara. It's Kentucky plays well against, not inferior competition, because Santa Clara is not really an inferior competition team, but just games where it's kind of a 50-50 one. Kentucky always plays those games well. Mark Pope's a really good coach. Santa Clara has size to match up. If they're, I'm going to go on a limb here. if there's, I know someone asked a couple questions ago, if there's a double-digit seed to make a run, I'll say Santa Clara, because I think Santa Clara, you're going to have to get past Iowa State, and I think Iowa State is fantastic. So that's asking a lot. But Santa Clara has the build and the makeup to make a deep run. If there's a 10 seed in the Elite Eight and it's Santa Clara, I wouldn't be completely surprised. All right, Jay Simone. Also, I loved your tips. I ended up 68 out of 68th and 369 points on Bracket Matrix. Nice. How'd you do? I honestly don't even really know how to go and like send it into Bracket Matrix, quite frankly. I don't do that every season, but 68 out of 68, good stuff. That's really solid there, 369. I wonder how the points are done there. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not real familiar with Bracket Matrix. I've never really reached out to them. I thought it was more of like a Twitter thing, but I'm not 100% sure, but good job. That's really, really solid. Ohio State Glazer Natty. Every year I find myself picking seven seeds, and I don't know why. I'm in the same boat every single season. Those 7 seeds are always just staring at you deep in the eyes, and it's always St. Mary's. St. Mary's always staring at you like, take me, please take me to the Sweet 16. I think I did last year. Took them over Alabama, which was incredibly stupid. That Alabama team was good, but yeah. From Dota Lex. Remember, if you pick every upset, you're sure to get one right. Indeed. I love following that guy. I don't even know what his name is, but he bets like $100 on every underdog, every single March Madness. I believe last year it was bad because obviously it was so chalky, but he's like up money overall. So yeah. All right, William M9. And UConn lost a close game versus Arizona earlier in the year, but UConn was without Terrace Reed and Braylon Mullins. Arizona out-rebounded UConn by 20. Yeah, that's kind of what Arizona will do you, that game being played at stores without I think Terrace Reed I thought Terrace Reed was going to be like the Big East player of the year this year. In the preseason, I picked him to be the player of the year. Probably sounds stupid now. You should have picked Zuby Ejiofor, or I should have picked Zuby Ejiofor. I picked Terrace Reed. You just see the potential with him. If he's in the game, he can, speaking of getting people in foul trouble, he can get Toby Awaka in foul trouble. He always seems to be in foul trouble. With Mo Krivas, yeah, we'll see. UConn, someone in the comments said it was playing Devil Advocates pod. He said that UConn plays really well against non-conference opponents, so we'll see if they can keep it going. Blueberry Hose, I also have St. John's over Duke. We'll see. I'm really intrigued for that matchup because I think they're really, really two talented teams. I hope that Patrick Gomba's back for that. I want Duke to be at full strength. I don't like seeing people, teams and fan bases having to almost, I don't know if they can win the championship if Patrick Gomba isn't playing every single game. He's that important. He's really good. So I hope he's back. Get Zuby Ejiofor versus Cam Boozer, Big East versus ACC player of the year. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, Jeremy Hodge, Houston Cougars going to make a deep run this year. I think so too. I like their draw. I think they got the best draw out of maybe just about anyone. Matchup wise, I'm not saying just team wise, because I think Illinois is probably one of your best 3 seeds. They're really, really good. But I just think Houston matches up really well with Illinois because they can frustrate Keaton Wagler, and they are heavily reliant on Keaton Wagler. And then I think you got Texas A&M or St. Mary's. Texas A&M is going to play lightning fast with their guards, but not really scared of either of those for Houston. And then Houston versus Florida, I think it's a decent matchup for Houston as well. I don't think Florida would be. I'd probably be a pick'em game. And the region does go through Houston as well. That's also, I just need to double check there, make sure I wasn't making things up. It does go through Houston as well. So that's obviously going to play a pretty big advantage for Houston as well. I'll probably be taking them to the Final Four. I take Houston to the Final Four every single year. I must be the biggest. Actually, I got a Houston shirt on right now. I must be the biggest Kelvin Sampson fan there is. Blueberry House, Michigan and Florida, the only 1 seeds I've gone to the Final Four. So he's the opposite. He's got Florida going to the Final Four plus Michigan. So no Duke. So you said you got St. John's over Duke plus no Arizona. Maybe he's got Arkansas. Arkansas would not shock me if they ended up in the Final Four. Jay Simone. Oh, yes, the Taco Fall team. Yeah, how fun was that team? The Taco Fall team. A little bit of similarities to, the TCU thing we got going on this year. Ohio State Glazer Natty. I think that the East is overrated because people are overvaluing coaching. I don't think UConn and Michigan State and St. John's have the talent to make a lot of noise. I agree with UConn and Michigan State. Last year's UConn team wasn't that talented. Let's be honest, and they almost beat Florida. So it's like that's why I do kind of honestly believe in the coaching thing. Like last year, Michigan State's team wasn't that talented. They ended up a 2 seed, which I guess you can say that's pretty talented, and ran through the Big Ten regular season, and they still made the Elite Eight. I think that's a huge credit to Tom Izzo. I think it's Like I wouldn't want to play Dan Hurley in March Madness. He's going to have his team ready and he's going to have them prepared and angry. On terms of the talent, I do think St. John's has the talent. However, the point guard is a big thing. That might be the big one where Duke is missing Caleb Foster if they're going against the St. John's point guard and Dylan Darling, where Caleb Foster would really frustrate him. We'll see if Caden Boozer would do that. But yeah, we'll see. Also, kind of the same position with like St. John's going up against they were to play Kansas in the second round. Who's guarding Darren Peterson? Probably throw Ian Jackson on him. I don't know, but yeah, could be a lot of interesting outcomes in the East region. Ohio State Glare Natty. The only way I'd consider Miami Ohio is if they play really well versus SMU. I'll just say it. I don't think SMU is very good whatsoever. However, I hate it, but I do think SMU is going to beat Miami. Boopy Miller's just so good, but if Miami, if I'm hoping they just sell that place out there 30, 40 minutes away from their campus, sell it out, get loud, make it an essential home game, and maybe they can make some noise. Playing devil's advocate pod. I have no idea what to do with Purdue coming in the week. I thought they were so mid and didn't want to overreact 4 games when I've watched an entire season. I agree. I am in the exact same boat. I am watching the same thing. I watched them today, and that looked like a completely different Purdue team. Is that a fluke game, or is the realistic? I don't know. I saw them get outplayed by Jake Diebler. Sorry, Ohio State Glazer Natty. I'm also an Ohio State fan, but I saw them get outplayed by a Jake Diebler coach team and got him in foul trouble and kind of outsmarted them. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. And then he also says combined 8 points, so not 5 points. Still really, really good. They lost by 4 without Reed Mullins. Yeah, that's really impressive. Covered the spread in every non-con game. All right, from Pug Peep, it sucks that either St. John's or Northern Iowa has to lose. I love both those teams. I agree. I didn't want if Northern Iowa was going to draw, I knew that you knew they were going to be a 12 seed. I'm like, please don't draw St. John's or Arkansas, who I thought was going to be the other 5 seed. Obviously ended up being Vanderbilt, and they drew St. John's. Like, come on now, give them another 5 seed. Like, who are the other 5 seeds? Can't remember. Oh, Wisconsin's kind of scary, but I do think Wisconsin's a little bit upset prone just because they play up so well, but they can also play down a little bit sometimes. They lost at Oregon earlier in the season. Texas Tech. I was like, for people who listen to the show, I'm a huge Grant McCaslin fan, but just without JT Toppin and Christian Anderson. If Christian Anderson isn't playing, I'm like, maybe that's the one where you pick Northern Iowa, and then maybe they build some momentum on that, build some confidence, and win another game. But yeah, kind of a tough draw for them. Big boy Billy, did Utah State get disrespected? So we haven't even talked about Utah State yet, have we? As a 9 seed, I had them as an 8 seed, and I thought they had an argument for a 7 seed. So maybe a little bit. We see it every year. The committee hates the Mountain West. I'm just going to say it. They hate the Mountain West. San Diego State was a first 4 out team, so I was kind of glad to see that. But yeah, I thought they were going to be an 8 seed. I actually had Ohio State and Georgia as 9 seeds, and I had Utah State and TCU as 8 seeds. I actually posted the prediction on the Instagram. I'm like, the 8 and 9 seeds, you can put them in pretty much any order. However, I did think Utah State was a top half 8 seed. So maybe a little bit, but I do think they got a little bit of a decent draw with Villanova, just play style wise. So maybe they can make something happen. But yeah, the pain of being, not a 7 seed and playing in the 8-9 game is you probably got to play Arizona in your second game if you happen to win your first one. It's a little bit tough there. Alrighty, from Scott Lertzman. Thoughts on USF, Akron, VCU, Georgia, or St. Louis? So USF, kind of talked about them a little bit here. Playing Louisville, wait and see if Michael Brown Jr. is going to play. I don't know that much about USF. They're like a team that I've had in the background of a lot of games, but yeah, really good team. I was really hoping that they made the tournament. They're playing really well. Them and VCU could be dangerous. So VCU also in the same conversation. I'll pick one of them. I'm not 100% sure which one it is. It might depend if Michael Brown Jr. plays. Michael Brown Jr. doesn't play, I'll probably take USF. If he does play, I'll probably just switch it around and pick VCU because I just want to pick one of these mid-major teams just out of the love of my heart. And then Akron, like I said, pretty decent draw against Texas Tech just because they're hurt. We'll see if Christian Anderson plays. Georgia or St. Louis, I'm going to lose sleep over. Gut says Georgia. Heart says St. Louis. I'll probably end up going with Georgia, though. TLWU, Queens over Purdue, easy. All righty, let's take Queens in that one. That would Queens out of the ASUN. How about that? The ASUN, that's what you think of when you think of ASUN, don't you? You think of Queens. How about that? Pretty good stuff there for Queens. First year of eligibility, maybe a little bit of magic. FDU, a little bit of magic. Maybe Queens. We'll see. Calvin Forbes, what 3 seed could you see losing in the round of 32? I know you said that these 14s are pretty weak. Yeah, I don't see a 14 beating a 3. If there is one 14 that I think just maybe could do it over 3, and I would never predict it, but North Dakota State over Michigan State, just because Michigan State, like we said, has played down to the level, but it's Izzo in March. Like I would never pick that, but if there was one, maybe that one. So 3 seed to go down. Like I said, I'm not going to take Gonzaga to go down. I would maybe look at Michigan State to go down to USF. Maybe someone like Virginia versus Tennessee. That would be my one. I think Tennessee is going to make the Sweet 16. That's kind of my prediction. But I like this Virginia team as well. Wouldn't be surprised if they get there. But Tennessee, I really like this team. All right, Climb 2910 says thoughts on Texas A&M and St. Mary's. Probably going to be, as if you were to tell me to pick one more contrasting styles, like one game for that, I could not pick a more contrasting style than St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. One of the fastest teams in the country will press every single possession under buckyball, and St. Mary's, who plays as slow as anyone in the entire country. I have no idea who's going to win that game. My gut says St. Mary's just because I trust Randy Bennett in the tournament. I wasn't high on Texas A&M in the preseason, but they've been impressive. But we'll see. From Big Boy Billy, could Arizona fall if there is an injury? I think if there's a team kind of built for an injury, it's Arizona. We saw it with Koa Pete when they lost Koa Pete. They were still completely fine. I like Arizona a lot. I'm in on this Arizona team. I think they're going to make the Final Four. I'm just going to say it. But if they were obviously to lose a Jaden Bradley or a Braden Burries, one of the guards, definitely could happen. Something rough. Obviously, they lost Koa Pete, and they also had Aristode. Dwayne Aristode was out as well at that same time, and they were still fine. So we'll see. TLW, St. John's is not getting over Duke. LMAO, yeah, I mean, like I'll be taking Duke, but I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world if someone wants to take St. John's over Duke. I wouldn't advise it. Like I said, I'm the 3 teams I'm probably going to pencil into the Final Four is going to be Duke, Arizona, and even Michigan. I'm still probably going to pencil in Michigan, but St. John's I think is one of the sneakier teams. That's a 4+ seed, absolutely. Jay Simone, 408 total points. Correct team 3. Oh, this is for the bracket matrix, how it goes off. Head 2, miss more by 1. So Utah State and Vandy. Yeah. So that's pretty good. That's really good. 3. That's a really good stat stuff there for bracket matrix. It's a pretty solid job. Ohio State Glazer. I like Ohio State's region because I don't see a big and physical team, which is our kryptonite, like Michigan is. Only team in our region that is like that is Michigan State if they make it far enough. That is true. However, Duke also kind of in that same boat. If Gamba is back, Gamba and Boozer, they're physical. They spread the floor. I think Duke would drill Ohio State, quite frankly, if they're at full strength, but we'll see. All right, Taylor Jones, 99.79. Are people overthinking Duke? Wasn't Flack banged up last year and they still made the Final Four? Yeah, so Flag missed. Did he miss the first game in the NCAA tournament? I know he missed the ACC tournament and they still ran through it. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink Duke. I'm taking Duke to the Final Four. I'll probably take him to the national championship. If I hear that Pat Gamba is back, I'm probably taking him to the national championship, maybe even winning the national championship. They're awesome. They spread the floor so well. John Shire is such an underrated coach. He's such an underrated offensive coach. I know his defense gets a lot of love, and it should because it's really good. He's a really good offensive coach as well. I think Duke is really, really good. And I don't see too many matchup problems with them in this region. I mean, TCU, like I said, can maybe give them some troubles. St. John's is good, but I'll be taking Duke to the Final Four. Ohio State Glazer. I always like Michigan State to go far, except for this year. Yeah, the talent. We'll see if they just have that elite, scoring talent. Like Jeremy Fears has proven to be that guy, but he's more of a pass first kind of guy. He's put up some big numbers, obviously, with some points. But yeah, we'll see if they what quite their ceiling is this year, I guess would be a better way to phrase it. Blueberry Hose. I won't go as far to say Arkansas will make the Final Four, but I don't think Elite Eight is out of the question. They're in the West, correct? Yeah. So to me, I think your hardest game is getting past Arizona. I know Blueberry Hose doesn't really like Arizona, doesn't think their ceiling's that high, but I think if you get past Arizona, you got a decent chance. Who's the 2 seed? I can't see it. Purdue. Like Purdue's beatable, in my opinion. Purdue has struggled coming into the Big Ten tournament where they just, kind of dominated, I guess, though. But Gonzaga, we'll see if they can. I think Arizona's your toughest game. So if you get past them, who's saying how far this team can go? Blueberry Hose also says if we get Arizona on a bad night, yes, absolutely agree. All right, Luxembourg. What do you think about Cal Baptist versus Kansas? I think it's a good matchup for Cal Baptist, and I'm picking them. I don't hate it. I don't hate it whatsoever. I've been saying I don't really like this Kansas team that much this season. I do trust Bill Self, though, in sort of the coaching aspect. I think he's a really good coach. We'll see if Darren Peterson really shows up when the lights are brightest. Cal Baptist is also kind of one of those if you're looking for good vibes. First time in the NCAA tournament. good team, good team. I liked Utah Valley. I thought Utah Valley had a good chance to take down a 4. Who's saying Cal Baptist can't either? I'm not going to act like I know a ton about Cal Baptist, but they're a good team, and I think Kansas can be a little bit vulnerable. You shut down Darren Peterson, cut off the head of the snake. We'll see. All right, playing devil's advocate pod. To add to the UConn stat, in both their losses, they had at least one starter out, Steph Castle, Terrace Reed, and Mullins. That's a good fact, too, as well. So whenever they have someone out, they struggle. If not, they're, well, I guess they don't struggle. They still play them well. But, yeah, really good stat there. Big boy Billy, Utah State over Villanova. I'm sorry, Mikey Man. Mikey Man, always commenting on the videos. Really appreciate all the love Mikey Man has given us over the years. But I think I'm taking Utah State over Villanova as well. I'm so sorry. All right, Blueberry Hose. I think Kansas is the most likely 4 to get upset in round 1. I'm not going to hate on it. I think I could agree. Like I said, I think your most dangerous 13 seeds in general would be Troy and would be Hofstra. I think Cal Baptist is a little bit of a step behind them. However, if Luxembourg says that Cal Baptist is a pretty good matchup, so I'm gonna trust his word on it. And Kansas has shown that they're a little bit vulnerable as of late. All right, Justin Benura, why Michigan State made the Elite Eight last year and they are better. Fierce has improved on his shot making ability, and the bigs improved that they dropped just one game against a hot UCLA team. Yeah, I trust Izzo in March. I trust that I'll be taking Michigan State to at least the Sweet 16, who's their 2 seed in the region. UConn, that could pose some problems for UConn as well. If you're going to take them to the Elite Eight, I would fully understand that. It's Izzo. It's March. He's going to get jobs done. I'm curious about how high their ceiling is. I don't see this team winning the national championship or maybe even getting to the championship game. But hey, if there's a chaotic tournament, maybe some things can happen. From Carmen, I'm so gut-wrenched that UMBC got a 16 seed on top of it, a play-in game. Yes, so this is the one at the top of the show that I kind of mentioned. I do not know why UMBC is in a play-in game. Let me find them here. So they have to play Howard. I thought UMBC was really in the conversation to be the last 14 seed. I'm actually pulling up the team sheet here because I did do the research on it. Where is UMBC? I know they're around here somewhere. So I'm going to compare UMBC. All right, so they're 106th in wins above bubble. Resume averaged out to 147.7. You find someone like an Idaho who's a 15 seed. Idaho's resume metrics average out to 210.3. Idaho's a 15 seed. UMBC, like I said, 147.7 to 210.3. That's resume-based metrics. Now, Idaho does have better predictive metrics, but that resume gap is too big, in my opinion. I really thought UMBC was going to be I thought LIU was going to be in a playing game, and UMBC at worst would be one of the, by 16 seeds, I guess. So, yeah, I would agree with you on that one. People always forget about Izzo in March and forget he lost to Middle Tennessee State. Yeah, that did happen, but that's one season. He's coached a long time. It's hard to escape all these upsets that that's always going to happen. He did lose that game to Middle Tennessee State, but he's got a really good track record though. Blueberry Hose, imagine if all Final Four is all double-digit seeds. I wish. I think those days might, even those potential chaotic ones with Florida Atlantic, stuff like that, I think those days, unfortunately, are done. Pluto Stick says, Florida overrated. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure. The thing I'm a little bit worried about with Florida is they're by far the most physical team in the SEC, and we saw them dominate because the SEC is not that physical this year. As crazy as that might sound weird to some people. It's not that physical. The front courts aren't that awesome. Alabama's front court isn't that awesome. Arkansas's front court is, they're more stretch guys like Trayvon Brazile, Malik Yoen. Florida is just big and physical, and they might have kind of taken advantage of the SEC this year and kind of just ran their way through them because they're by far the most physical team. So we'll see if that, I'm curious to see how they do getting out of the SEC this season, which is why I think I like Houston over Florida, but we'll see. Ohio State Glazer 90, who is the most overseeded team? Great question. I'm not 100% sure. I actually, in my bracketology, I had every team within one seed line at worst. There was a couple of 9 seeds I missed that I had 8 seeds. I'm sorry, Ohio State Glazer 90. Like I said, I live in Columbus. I'm an Ohio State fan as well. I think Ohio State's the most overseeded. I thought Ohio State, at least just from my prediction, I thought they were going to be maybe the second 9 seed, maybe in the back half of getting close to a 10 seed. I think that win over Iowa probably boosted up a little bit, but I did not expect. I guess that's the team I didn't expect to be an 8 seed was Ohio State. When it came out second time, I was like, oh my God, Ohio State's an 8 seed. I thought they were going to be a 9. I'm glad to see him as an 8 seed, obviously as an Ohio State fan, but yeah. So I guess that would be kind of the easy answer for me. All right, Jake Mitchell, thoughts on Texas A&M and St. Mary's? Yeah, so like I said, this is the most interesting game. Probably the first round. St. Mary's so slow. Texas A&M so fast. I'm not going to try and pick it. I'll probably end up taking St. Mary's just because I like St. Mary's, but we'll see. All right, from Norin Rad, St. John's, Northern Iowa, and Louisville, USF both look like upsets. Ooh, Northern Iowa over St. John's. I like Northern Iowa a lot too. Really, really good defense, but St. John's playing well. Northern Iowa definitely my favorite 12 seed though, and then USF. Like I said, I'll take one of USF or VCU. I'm not sure who it is yet, but we'll see. Kelvin Forbes, do you think Tennessee could beat Iowa State or not? I can't get away from ones and twos in my Elite Eight. Yeah, I get it. I'll say no. I think Iowa State's going to beat Tennessee. I like Tennessee a lot. I liked them in the preseason, and I see it. I see it with their team. Like I said, I see their on-ball defense. I see them guarding the threes. It's fantastic. However, whenever I don't know, I feel like every time I watch a game, I end up leaving disappointed. I don't know why that is. I think Iowa State can really frustrate Jacoby Gillespie. Nate Ament is going to have to go up against a really physical Josh Jefferson or Blake Buchanan. I like that matchup for Iowa State. I think Iowa State's going to get past them. If you have to pick a 16 and a 15, who are you taking? So I said for on my last prediction show, I think Siena is the best 16 seed, and they have to play the number 1 overall seed. Like, why do they get a bye? I'm not sure the bracketing principles of that. Like, I would have thought that Duke would have drawn Prairie View A&M and Lehigh instead of Siena having to play them, because I thought Siena was the best. I don't know. I would have liked to see Siena play someone like Michigan, just because I think Duke is so good. Like, Duke is not going to get upset. I'd be very, very surprised if they do. If Siena were to play like Michigan or maybe Florida, like maybe I think Duke and Arizona have kind of shown they're the least vulnerable of the 1 seeds, even though none of the 1 seeds are real vulnerable. They're all awesome. So I liked Siena, but against Duke. So I'll just go matchup wise. Unfortunately, the Finns probably aren't going to get there. I'll say UMBC. Just, they've beaten a 1 seed before. And I think that they're underseeded. I think they should have been a 15 seed. In terms of 15 seeds, I'd have to look through them. Idaho's not going to get past them. Tennessee State not going to get past Iowa State. Queens, Purdue, Furman, and UConn. I'll say Furman just because I think Furman's the best 15 seed. I'll say them over UConn, but would never recommend picking any of them. All right, Luxembourg. I think Purdue is incredibly overseeded. I really want to pick Miami over them, but I just do think Miami's ceiling is high enough. Yeah, we'll see if Miami, like I said, they're really physical. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Purdue also has that size, but they've shown some vulnerability. We'll see. I thought Purdue was going to be a 3 seed. I had Purdue as a 3 seed, Michigan State as a 2 seed. Ended up flipping them, but we'll see. TLWU, chalk bracket, Duke, Michigan final. I'm not going to argue against it. Anyone taking Duke or Michigan, I'm not going to argue against it whatsoever. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Justin Benura, you think there's a chance all 1 seeds in the Final Four again? I absolutely think there's a chance. I think that's going to be more of a norm than you think. Maybe in every, what has it been since 2008? So what was that, 17 years? Maybe more of an every 5 or 6, 7 years sort of thing now. It could definitely happen. If it happens again, it'll really start becoming a trend. The 1 seeds, they're getting better and better, as we can see at these KenPom rankings. Playing devil's advocate pod, I wouldn't want to see Bama if I'm Michigan, one of those teams where you are at their will and they'll shoot 53s, and if you make them to lose, like BYU Sweet 16 game last year, absolutely, I 100% agree. However, I will say I did trust last year's team shooting-wise a lot more than this team's year shooting. They're still really good, but last year's team was really, really good. But Michigan or Alabama is going to be a team for everyone, just like North Carolina ran into a couple seasons ago as a 1 seed. You run into a hot shooting night, you're in trouble. Also from Playing Devil's Advocate pod, Utah State over Villanova, my most confident 7-10, 8-9 pick. No, I agree. I think Utah. I don't know. Utah State, like I said coming into this selection Sunday, I'm like, I'm not picking a Mountain West team no matter what. I didn't think the Mountain West I didn't think any teams really had any chances of winning the game. I think Villanova is just kind of a little bit vulnerable. It's year 1, and it's really good that they got to an 8 seed this year. We just saw them lose to Georgetown. Maybe that's sticking in the back of our minds a little bit, but yeah, we'll see. That's going to be a tough one for me to pick. And then I feel like it's also sort of easy to pick Louisville because they beat everyone below a certain caliber and lose to everyone in Quad 1A. Yeah, they could not pick up a Quad 1A win. for the life of them. So yeah, would agree with that one. So maybe you take them over USF and then to lose the next game. All right, Luxembourg, who's your favorite 12 over 5 pick? Mine is Akron over Tech. I think that's probably mine too, just because Texas Tech, if Christian Anderson doesn't play and they're without JT Toppin, they're really going to be searching for pieces. I think I would agree with that as well, but we'll see. Ohio State Glazenati, who are some players that can take over the tournament? Darius Acuff, top of the list right there. I will still go Darren Peterson at second and AJ DeManza. All these freshmen I think can take over. Obviously, like that's not even including like Cam Boozer. Obviously, Cam Boozer is the best player in the sport. Donovan Dent's been playing really, really well. Jeremy Fears is also still right there, can play really, really well. Even Louisville, if Michael Brown Jr. is back, he could shoot them to a win over USF and then finally get them a do they have one quad 1A win, either 0 or 1, a win over Michigan State. He can definitely do it. Looking through some other regions, I love, speaking of Ohio State, I'll give some props to Ohio State. Would love to see Bruce Thornton kind of carry them to a victory or two, but going to be a tough ask there. Nick Boyd's another one out of Wisconsin, been playing really, really good. But my pick right now, and I think Graham Ike is going to really solidify himself here as one of the best players in the country. But my pick would definitely be Darius Acuff. He is just awesome. Then Ohio State Glazenati, what future white guy accountant or car salesman will turn into Steph Curry this year? I think going off recency bias, it's got to be TJ Power at Penn after his where are they at here? After their 40-point performance today, it's going to be a little bit. I guess if there's a team, Illinois does not play the most elite defense. They can give up some. They can give up some points. They got the best offense in the country, but they can definitely allow some points to be scored. Maybe TJ Power can go off and just go off for like 35 and maybe get them to a close victory there. All right, Blueberry Hose, Malik Thomas and Billy the Kid next to Acuff make for a dynamic trio. I absolutely love Billy Richmond. He's fantastic. Darius Acuff, like I said, he's my favorite player in college basketball right now. He is unbelievable as a shot maker. I'm curious to see how far Arkansas goes. Jackson Mefford, could Iowa State realistically beat Michigan and make the Final Four? I think so. I think this Iowa State team is really good. We saw them just compete with Arizona, and like I said, I think Arizona is about as good as they get in the country. They're really, really solid. So we'll see. I think Iowa State definitely has a chance. This team is awesome. Do not sleep on them. I always, kind of look for like, as long as you have 3 elite pieces and then some complementary pieces, you have a solid shot to make the Final Four. Taman Lipsey, Milan Momcilovic, Josh Jefferson, doesn't get much better than that. Veteran play. They have an actual start. They have the best shooter in the country. I think they could do it. Pug Pete, do you think Missouri pretty much getting a home game will have an effect on their Miami matchup? Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an advantage for them. I don't think Miami is like unbeatable. Like, they're going to be a popular pick to make the Sweet 16 over who would they play? Purdue? Is that who it was? It's definitely something. It's definitely a 10 over 7 that I will look at. I will definitely look at it. It's definitely an advantage. Mark Mitchell's awesome. I think they match up pretty similarly. So we'll see. Playing devil's advocate pod, St. Mary's not going to smash A&M on the glass, in my opinion. We'll see. I'm going to lose sleep over this game too. I'm going to have to do a lot of research on this game. I like St. Mary's. I like Morauskas a lot. But we'll see. I think mine's more just like the preseason bias. Like I didn't think either of these two teams were going to be very good in the preseason, and they're both in the NCAA tournament as at large. So we'll see. Arizona is my clear pick to win it all. Ohio State Glazenati, yeah, that's I'm not going to disagree with that. Norin Rad, if Bradley is okay, Arizona wins it. Yeah, I forgot about that Jaden Bradley injury. I guess I probably should have mentioned that a while ago. Kind of forgot about it, just stuck in the Selection Sunday bracketing. But yeah, if he's okay, they're definitely one of the teams to beat. Playing devil's advocate pod, I think Arizona has the final path it's the easiest path to the Final Four. I can only see them the Sweet 16 matchup giving them trouble. Yeah, I'm going to pencil in Arizona to the Final Four as well. I think they're really, really good. People think they're chokes, and I'm not even going to argue with that. They haven't performed up to their seed line expectation, I'll say, but I think this year's the year that they do it, get to the Final Four. Could Iowa State also beat Arizona to make it to the finals or maybe even win it all? Sure. They just lost to Arizona by 2 in the Big 12 thanks to a Jaden Bradley buzzer beater. So I think Iowa State can compete with anyone in the country with their veteran leadership. Blueberry Hose, do you think Nebraska is too high at a 4 seed? I had Nebraska actually as the last 3 seed. I knew it was between Nebraska and Virginia. I wanted to put Virginia. I know it's easier said now. I wanted to put Virginia just because their metrics were better, but I did think Nebraska just had higher end wins that they could get that last 3 seed, but it just I think they're fine as a 4 seed in my opinion. All right, Butterly Perfect. I'm a Michigan fan, but after that loss today, I feel very hesitant picking them for the Final Four or Elite Eight. Yeah, I'm not that worried about Michigan, quite frankly. I think, like I said, I am a believer in you lose a game, you get refocused. I think that is a real thing, and I think that's going to be the case for this Michigan team. They cruised through the entire season. Look at Auburn last year. They cruised through the entire season, lost early. They lost early in the SEC tournament last year, refocused into the Final Four. I think Michigan's going to be kind of one of those teams. I still think they're one of those top level teams in terms of talent wise. Like they're a matchup nightmare for everyone. I think Michigan's going to be fine, quite frankly. Ohio State Glazer, any thoughts on VCU making the Sweet 16? So where do we got VCU at? Are they down here? Yeah, there we go. Taking on North Carolina, I could see them winning the game. I'm not sure I'm going to pick it, but I could see them. Against Illinois, I'm not quite sure how that matchup would set up, but Illinois can give up some points, definitely. I wouldn't hate it. Take VCU to Sweet 16. Wouldn't hate it whatsoever. All right, Luxembourg. The size issue for Penn is a massive issue, but Penn's offense doesn't have a high enough ceiling to make up for it. But does Penn's offense have a high enough ceiling to make up for it? I'm a Penn and Nova fan, by the way. Hey, your offense goes where TJ Power goes, and Fran McCaffrey is a tremendous offensive coach. So if I know this is going to be the popular pick as a 14 over 3, if someone's looking for a huge pick, it's going to be Penn because of the noise that they just made today against Yale. However, not taking away anything from Penn, I do think Yale was not that great this year. I know they were going to be a 12 seed, had pretty good metrics. I didn't think they were like a real quality Yale team. I'm not going to pick Illinois over Penn. I see a world where Penn could do it, but we saw what TJ Power was at Duke. Where else did he go? Did he go to Virginia last year? Maybe. He wasn't awesome. We'll see if he's maybe turned a corner. People get better. He finds a role. He gets better. I'm going to take Illinois, but we'll see. Norn Rad, Zona has a tough path. They're just the best team. I think their floor is as high as anyone in the country. I think they are awesome. All right, playing devil advocate pod. How is Duke not a big and physical tough matchup for Ohio State? LOL. They have an absurd front court. How is Duke not a big and physical tough matchup? Yeah, it's a really tough matchup for Ohio State. It's I think that's what this is asking. Ohio. I don't think Ohio State has a chance against Duke. Like I said, I think Duke is rooting for Ohio State to win the game over TCU. I think TCU can cause more problems for Ohio State. I don't see Ohio State's front court being anywhere near competing with Duke's. All right. Jason Courtney, do you think Miami of Ohio field goal percentage and offensive efficiency will take a hit once they play a team of SMU's caliber? Are they a legitimately good offense? I think they're a legitimately good offense, and I'll tell you why. Because they just when you make shots under the pressure they've been under, I think they're a good offense. I think they're going to score points. I don't know how they're going to stop SMU's offense. Is what I will say. We'll see. I'm rooting for Miami of Ohio. I think it's going to be SMU though, unfortunately. What from Justin Bonera, what's your hardest first round matchup to choose so far? God, they're all hard. They feel all hard. Miami, Florida versus Missouri. I mean, I could just go through all these and be like 8 versus 9, 7 versus 10. I have no clue. I'll give you a 6 versus 11. I'll say North Carolina versus VCU is going to be one of my harder ones. I'm not 100% sure who to pick in that one. Ohio State Glazer and I don't fall into St. Mary's trap. They're in the same situation every year. Yes, they are. They're a 5 through 7 seed every single season. That looks like a darling. Them versus Texas A&M. I don't love this Texas A&M team. They've been, and that's. I don't mean that to be a negative to them. They were awesome this season. There was no reason that they should have made the NCAA tournament with when they hired Bucky McMillan late in the cycle. For him to get them to the NCAA tournament and comfortably in as a 10 seed is awesome. So I love the story behind it. I just wasn't that in on them in the preseason. Same goes for St. Mary's though, but we'll see. That's going to be another really, really tough one for me to pick. Also from Ohio State Glazer United, this tournament will either be straight chalk or crazy. I agree. I would lean more towards the chalk side, but we'll see. Norn Rad, I think Nebraska-Troy will be a good game. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a little bit of a scary draw for Nebraska. I bet they saw that today and they're like, oh, come on now, really? But we'll see about that one. Hopefully Nebraska finally gets an NCAA tournament win. Calvin Forbes, you think Florida can Vandy? Whoa, excuse me, dyslexic. You think Vandy could beat Florida again? They are the weakest one in my opinion. I don't see them making the Final Four. Also, if Illinois, Houston happen to meet. How does that play out? I think Houston would beat Illinois, quite frankly. I like Illinois. I think they could do it, but I think Houston has a really good matchup there against Illinois. In terms of Florida, I would take Florida to beat Vanderbilt. I will be probably taking Florida to beat Vanderbilt, but they're definitely vulnerable. I think Vanderbilt could beat them because Vanderbilt kind of on a smaller level than like Alabama. I know they don't play like as fast as Alabama, obviously, but they're kind of a team that I think can just kind of outshoot opponents a lot of the times, like they kind of just did against Florida. They also have good size, so we'll see. But I think Vandy could, but I would take Houston and Florida in that scenario. And then Booberry Hose says a Florida Vandy matchup would be dope. Yes, it would. That would rematch would be dope. That would be fun to see them again. Playing devil's advocate pod, I don't think Arizona can have a bad game. Haha. I agree. Their style is absolutely awesome. You know, we talk about how they don't shoot threes. They don't need to shoot threes. They still win every game. And when you don't shoot threes, you're not bound for a little bit of voluntary. Is that the word? Voluntary? You know, I don't know. I love this Arizona team. I think they're fantastic. Blueberry Hose, I have no statistics to base my opinion on here, but I think it's better to I think sometimes it can be better to lose a game before the tournament to keep teams grounded, never underestimate anyone. I agree. I fully buy into this narrative that you know, like Michigan losing that game, I think it can refocus them. Like I said, I gave the example of Purdue a couple seasons ago, lose a game in the semifinals to Wisconsin, run all the way to the national championship game. Same goes for Auburn last season. 100% agree. Feel like when teams win 20 in a row, it can sometimes get to their heads. Yes, absolutely. I think you can maybe even make that case for Michigan just today. Jackson Mefford, is it absolutely crazy to think UCLA can make the Final Four if Duke gets upset? No, I don't think it's absolutely crazy whatsoever. I think UCLA, preseason top 15 team, Xavier Booker's playing well. As long as Tyler Bilodeau's healthy, Donovan Dent's been really good lately. Crazier things have happened. They're starting to play some really good basketball. All right, Ohio State Glazer 90. Why can't Ohio State do something Florida State did to Duke? Yeah, I mean, good point. Good point. I just think that was a very trappy game for Duke. Your first couple games without, your first game without Caleb Foster and Patrick Gamba. Looking ahead, you're thinking you're going to play North Carolina in the second round. They obviously ended up getting Clemson. We saw, you know, them struggle with Florida State and then kind of beat up on Clemson a little bit. Then they obviously played a good game with Virginia, but Virginia is a top 10 team. So it was, to me, I think that was more of a little bit of an outlier. I just think it's not like a disrespect to Ohio State. I just think Duke is awesome. I think they're going to be a really tough matchup for pretty much anyone. But with Ohio State, just Ohio State's style is going to kind of struggle a little bit with Duke. Ohio State, like, you're going to throw Christoph Tilly and Ivan, whatever his last name is, on these two bigs at Duke. If Gamba's healthy, I don't know if I can buy them, maybe pulling off an upset. But hey, maybe Bruce Thornton can just go off. I would absolutely love that. Drop like 35 in an NCAA tournament game in his first one, or second one it would be, I guess. Pug Peep, does Arkansas have a chance against Arizona in the Sweet 16? I like Acuff a lot, but I don't know if that's enough. I think it's a bad matchup for Arkansas in that game for sure. I don't think anyone's a bad matchup for Darius Acuff. He's awesome, but Jaden Bradley's about as good of an option as you have to throw on Darius Acuff. So I think he could pose definitely some problems. But Darius Acuff's going to get his. But like I said, I just really love this Arizona team. I think they're going to get past them. I think it's a tough draw for Arkansas here. Playing devil's advocate pod, MSU is definitely not better than last year. Yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of just similar teams in my opinion. Luxembourg, I'm so mad that Wisconsin basically got the worst draw possible. I truly believe they could make the Final Four, but I know they won't get by Arizona. Yeah, tough draw. You get the SEC champion, then you get the Big 12 champion in two of your next couple games if you beat High Point, and High Point's a 12 seed. So yeah, definitely pretty tough draw for Wisconsin there. Ohio State Glazer Natty, the first round feels way harder to predict than normal. I feel this way every single season. The 8 versus 9, 7 versus 10s, I feel like I'm just picking them out of a hat. We'll see. Norn Rad, I think Virginia has the best chance to beat Michigan if they match up within that bracket. Michigan's still the favorite, though. Yes. I also think Tennessee can match up with Michigan decently well if they can get that far. Who's the 2 seed? Iowa State. I think Iowa State can match up with them too. I do think Michigan has some threats in this. Obviously, if you have to play Alabama, Alabama can outshoot you. Texas Tech, Christian Anderson can outshoot you pretty much. Tennessee, Virginia, Iowa State. Like I said, don't sleep on Santa Clara. I know I'm kind of overlooking Kentucky. I think Kentucky's really well coached. I don't know if their ceiling is real high. I think even Kentucky fans would agree with that. We'll see about Santa Clara. I think they can have a little bit of a higher ceiling than you might think. Luxembourg, 1848. I love St. Mary's over A&M, but they will get beat up by Houston. They will get slaughtered by Houston. I agree with you in that one. Ohio State, Glazer, I wish High Point got a good draw. Yeah, tough draw. You win your first game, then you have to play Arkansas on your second game. Pretty tough draw. Would 100% agree. Saucity, awesome-y. There we go. I love that username. Vanderbilt should have been a 4 seed, in my opinion. I predicted them as a 4 seed. I didn't think Arkansas would jump, but they did, and I don't think it was the worst decision. However, I do think maybe Vanderbilt should have been ahead of Kansas in that scenario. But I really didn't have any true problems with what the committee did, other than UMBC as a playing game. I don't love it. All right, I'm just going to go through a couple more here as we're up to almost 2 hours. Love everyone commenting on here. Really appreciate it. Really helps me out. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Got 3 more here that I'm going to go for. Ohio State, Glazer, I was going to pick Florida going into Saturday, and then Vandy happened. And Arizona continues to look great. I'm just a little worried about Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee. I think Boogie Fland's a really good player. He's got upside. I don't think Xavier Lee has much upside. I don't think he's got that pro-level talent. I don't even think that's a hot take whatsoever. I wanted to see Florida go up against Texas A&M. I'm sure they played earlier this year, but I can't remember what the result was. But just seeing like Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee in real pressure situations against like a Texas A&M pressure defense, thought would have been a lot of fun. Even though like Texas A&M would have had to be the 9, or I don't even know what the bracketing principles they could have played. But someone like a team like that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about Florida as well. All righty, where are we at here? Luxembourg. Thoughts on a potential Gonzaga versus Texas game? I think Texas is actually very sneaky and Gonzaga is overseeded. I like Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is – I actually think Gonzaga is underrated, quite frankly. If you're going to take Texas over NC State and over who would they play in the first round? Can't remember where they're at. BYU, right? Is that who it is? Yeah, BYU. BYU's banged up, so if they were to get past them, if there's a first 4 team that can do it, maybe Texas. But I like Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga's solid. I'm probably going to take Gonzaga to the Elite 8. Norn, does Braden Smith play himself into a first-round pick? Already has the crowd on his side, especially if he breaks the assist record. First off, super cool. He's going to break the assist record. That is awesome as like a true 4-year guy. No, he won't be a first-round pick. I would be shocked if he gets drafted, quite frankly. Blueberry Hose. I definitely think Vanderbilt deserves the 4 seed over Kansas at Saucity, but regardless, I'm sure you guys will make a good run in the tournament. Yeah, I like this Vanderbilt team, but we'll see. Seaball Report, what do you think of Texas A&M's chances of beating St. Mary's? So someone just asked a question of what's your toughest first-round game to pick? This is going to be one of them. This is a really tough one. I'll give it a 50-50 chance. Hopefully that sorry, I can't answer that question too well. Do you think Duke, Arizona, Houston, and Virginia are a good Final Four? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Jed Berkey. I think that's a good Final Four. In fact, that's probably going to be my Final Four, except instead of Virginia, I'm going to go Michigan. I'm just going to play the odds. So I'm going to be as chalky as they come. I'm going to be about as boring. Pug Peep is out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here, asking some questions. See you later, Pug Peep. All right, Saucity, awesome. Just a couple more here. I'm actually a Kansas fan. I thought the committee would value the conference tournaments more. And move Vandy ahead of Kansas. Yeah, I like I said, I thought if Arkansas jumped someone, it was going to be Kansas. I thought Vanderbilt's resume was just too good to be a 5 seed, but not where we ended up. Blueberry Hose, I thought that's what would happen too. But then, yeah, they put 3 SEC teams in the 4 slot. Yes, they did. Alrighty, I think that's it. 1 hour and 52 minutes in, by far the longest show I've ever done. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I'll pull up the full bracket again. This is what we will see on Thursday, first round matchups. First 4 starts on Tuesday, and Tuesday and Wednesday. Nornrad says, thank you for the show. Thank you for tuning in, Nornrad. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning, on Monday morning, dissecting every single game in the first round. I'm going to dive deeper into the matchups. I'm going to talk about some potential dark horses, some potential, I kind of gave a lot of input on this one, a lot more than I expected to, but some potential more matchups just in more of a show-like form. We'll talk about some of the paths that some of these teams might potentially be able to make a run to the Final Four. I'll talk about some of the sleepers and stuff like that. So it'll be every game dissected tomorrow. Be sure to come back for that. Just one more question. Jackson Mefford, what do you think of Ohio State and TCU? I'm an Ohio State fan, as I've been saying, but I like TCU to win the game. Unfortunately, I wish Ohio State didn't draw TCU. I thought Ohio State was going to be a 9 seed. I thought TCU was going to be an 8 seed. I like TCU a lot. I've been higher on this team for kind of a while. Connor says, thank you for the picks. Yes, no problem. I'm not the most intelligent picker, I guess I will say. I watch a lot of these games, obviously. I study it, but yeah, I wouldn't just take everything I say to fill out your bracket, but just kind of give some matchup stuff. Blueberry Hose, good luck to everyone. Teams coming up this week. Absolutely. Good luck to everyone. Be sure to come back tomorrow morning where I'm just dissecting every single game. Before heading out, just be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the show, and turn on the post notifications so you stay up to date. I'll be back with the more of like the breaking down day by day sort of stuff, recapping, talking about round of 32, and then God forbid in the Sweet 16 when we all start filling out our our second chance brackets once they all fail. So be sure to come back for that. Follow us on Instagram at Bracket Science with 2 S's, and then check out the website bracketscience.org, link down below. Thanks again for everyone being here live. Talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.